Welcome everyone to another episode of Broken by Concept, episode 199. Not introducing you. They know who we are. We're getting straight into it. So, we're going to talk about inspiring. This is going to be hopefully an inspirational episode. Hopefully. We could be completely delusional and out of touch, but we're going to have an attempt at inspiring people to take their gameplay to the next level. And I guess have a more pleasant League of Legends journey. And I want to start with a bit of a story here. So I was excited to play the new patch. And so much so that solo queue wasn't actually out, I don't think. So when I clicked play now, there was only, I think draft, normals, whatever. And then there was only flex queue on the thing. And so I'm like, all right, well, I really want to try out the new items. I wanted to try the new items. I wanted to feel how the new ghost felt, etc., etc. So I queued up. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to play flex. I just want to get on the rift. So I queued up. I don't play flex. So my MMR must have been, or my rank must have been pretty low. And so I was like, who the hell am I going to verse?
Did you have borders when you loaded in?
It was like bronze borders or something. No borders.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I didn't play it.
I see.
And then I'm like, okay, what is the actual solo queue rating of the player that I versed? And I end up versing an Emerald Aurelian Soul. I was playing Galio.
Oh, so there wasn't bronze players?
No, but like you have a flex queue rank. So it doesn't show the solo queue rank in flex queue.
Okay, so you looked up and you saw their solo queue
Yeah, because I was curious. And I'm like, what am I versing? Like, am I going to be versing Diamond players, Master Tier players, whatever?
That would be interesting.
It was Emerald, right? And I'm like, okay, interesting. We'll play this one out. And I obviously didn't feel comfortable doing it, but I'm like, oh, I just want to get on the rift and play, right?
You're just there to test items.
I'm just there to test items, right? I'm going to play one game. So I play this game, and this has been a while. It's been a very, very, very long time since I've genuinely versed Emerald players. I genuinely don't even know what it would feel like. So I play this game. Inevitably, I stomp everyone, and
you're playing your main role and
playing a champion that I'm good at. Playing Galio, trying to test out Galio, the new ghost on it, and see how it felt. And I'm going like 12-0, 10 CS per minute, dominating the game. And basically, what I found in this game was like, holy moly, it was just really, I guess, a wake up call to how much I really do know about the game and how advanced my mental stack really is. And it gave me beautiful perspective over, wow, the levels in this game are way... The difference in level of play between an Emerald player and myself, words can't even comprehend how much is going on that is completely different between me and this Aurelian Soul.
How would you describe what you felt playing in that game?
Well, it was interesting because, I mean, look, I'm not going to say it's a flexi game, so maybe he wasn't trying.
That's right.
I don't know. Yeah. I can only comment from what it felt like.
Yeah.
But it just felt like everything, I was able to simultaneously be aware of every single thing happening on the map, understand what I needed to do, what I shouldn't go to, dominate the lane, CS well, do everything, and just feel not even overwhelmed mentally. Like, I could commentate while playing, just chill. Like, everything felt like it was in my control, right? And I had two losing sides. Jungle was behind, playing Galio into ASOL. And I didn't kill the ASOL in lane, right? So for ages, like he was just free farm. He was respecting. He was actually playing quite well. He was respecting me, getting shoved in, focusing on his farm. I was only up like, I think 20 CS or whatever it was. I was very limited in what I can do because we didn't have a lot of control. My jungle was behind and we had two losing sides. So I didn't have much vision. So I had to actually play relatively slow. And so anyway, I was just farming. And again, my feeling out of the game was like, holy moly, the gap is just way bigger than I ever would have thought, even bigger than I did think, really. And it left me feeling like, okay, I want to use this experience to inspire people, to get them thinking in a way whereby they're capable of so much more. Now, I came up with this metaphor. So I did a daily tidbit on my website, kind of trying to encapsulate what I felt. So this is my metaphor, right? So imagine, you enter a room, and in this room, there are 5 objects in this room. And the goal is you got to find all the objects in the room. So you go in this room and you find all the objects. There's 5 like little things, and you pick them all up. And now you don't know if there's another room or not. So there are certain people that might pick up the 5 objects in the room. They think they finished the game, and then that's it. They're not curious or trying to figure out, is there another room here? Or was this the only door that got, like, there's one door, one room, that's it? This is a dead end? There are some people that are curious, is there another door? Can I find another door here? And some people spot another door and they go to another room. Like, oh my God, okay, there's another 5 objects. So they try to scour the room, find the other 5 objects. And then, again, they might think, or is this it? This is the dead end? And let's say it's like an escape room or something. The door's not exactly obvious. So some people might look around a little bit and be like, I guess there's nothing here. And they'll just give up. They might end their journey on their second room. Other people are more curious. They're like, well, there was a first door in the first room. Surely there's another one on the second room. If I keep scrounging around here, maybe I can find another one. And, oh, wow, there's another door there. Oh, my God. And they find another 5 things. And so the point that I'm trying to get at here is that in League, there is always another door. There is always another door that you can enter that is going to lead you to this place that you never even knew existed. Now, at every, like, the game is so overwhelmingly complicated that there are going to be times in your journey where you feel like you're doing your absolute best. You are objectively doing your best. You're playing to your absolute limit. You're trying, you maybe even you are playing solid League of Legends. Like, you're CSing well. You feel like your fundamentals are pretty good. You feel like you're doing everything you can, but you think that's it. This is it. This is my level of play. I don't see how I could possibly get better than this. I don't even understand how this game could be played better. So that's it. I'm hanging up my boots and I'm happy with my level of play.
I'm not going looking for that next door.
I'm not looking for that next door. And then, there are other people that, even if they play well, they're still looking for that door. They've got that glimmer in their eye, or they've got this hope in the back of their mind that's like, you know what? There probably are some things that I could improve on in this game. How could I min-max my ability usage in this fight?
Do more damage.
How could I have done more damage?
Be more efficient.
Be
to that fight 0.5 seconds earlier.
They're trying to really trying to figure out what's
Especially
next.
The higher you go, it's just we talk about getting into the details. It's the really, 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 really small things that you're not realizing. And if you were to give that VOD to someone else higher rank than you, they will be able to just pinpoint a lot of things that you would never have thought
about.
When you use that analogy of the first room and their task is to pick up 5 objects and then they don't think about the next room. I always think about that in terms of people's perception of how good they are with a champion.
Yeah.
Specifically ability usage. Me and I've been working with Perry to make a Diana guide, and we were talking about this advanced usage of E, where you reposition your E to go behind them so you can escape, that click that movement. But we literally said, is this even worth to put in the guide, or should we put it in an advanced section? And we said it should be advanced section because that's not really that. But that one fight where that actually might be practical, because we found it wasn't that practical most of the time, that is the next level type things, So... Yeah,
there is always another level.
Always.
Right? Whether it be, like you said, the champ specifics or maybe a game knowledge. How could you have known that? How could you have anticipated that? Right? And so, this is kind of the analogy or the metaphor or story, I guess, that I kind of put together. And I think that what I suggest people adopt is this mindset that there is always another door. Now, it may not be obvious to you. You might be scrounging around for that door for months, but I guarantee you there is always another door. I've played this game for 14 years and still there has always been another level, another door, another area that I have not yet explored that I'm like, wow, I never would have thought this was possible.
And I've seen that now since we're learning top to make the Top Lane Academy. In my reviews now, I'm looking at top and seeing moments where the top lane is screwed before I would have actually probably missed that a lot of the time. I'm looking at the minimap, it's the typical 3-wave crash bounce back, hold wave.
But where it even gets more in depth is you now would have specific matchup knowledge that you wouldn't have had before.
That's right.
It's oh wow, there's a Mordekaiser Darius matchup there, or that Garen. Oh, I know what that Garen wants. I know what that Mordekaiser wants. I know what that Darius wants. You would be able to then really, now that's the next level, where it's not even about you or when you're getting very champ specific. And this has an infinite skill cap.
Champ specific, but at specific stages of the game. Even.
And matchup specific. Champ specific, matchup specific, game time specific, spike specific.
It's like Urgot, level 5, we identify with the Urgot guide. He's the weakest point in the game. I would never have thought that, and then that would maybe change my decision making. Just that one game.
Should I contest that grubs on top
Yeah.
side? And you need to see tops even prior?
Yeah.
It's a level 5 Ergon.
That's
we
right.
Can.
Yes.
Yeah.
But think about when that would happen, Curtis. That would happen probably 1 in like 50 games.
One in, not even, way less. You know what I mean? It would happen barely at all.
But that's that one game that could be that
like a 1 in
extra
10,000
LP type thing,
Yeah. 100%. And there is so many. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of situations and things that you can experience yourself or experience and then create learnings from. And the key here, and again, we sound like a broken record on this podcast, but it's like that is the source of the never. It's kind of okay. That's where the curiosity comes from. It's like, well, I've been through 1,000 rooms. Surely there is another one. And it's that belief that there is another room that keeps you going. And that's what keeps the game fresh. That's what keeps the journey exciting. Is that what is that next thing that I'm going to figure out that's going to take my gameplay to the next level? What's the next thing that I need to create to a habit to then free up my mental stack to think about something else? And so, what I've, I guess, grown to appreciate is how important putting more and more and more things into your mental stack so you can think about other things. And that is when...
That's the skill.
That's the skill
people miss in League of Legends.
Yeah. And I had a session with, I think it was like a silver or gold player. And no, I think it was a silver Oriana. And we're talking about spacing and tethering. And you can tell, like, I just wanted to get this person excited. So what we'll do, I want to show this clip here. And I just use this little clip here as an example to show them like the levels. Because I get really, sometimes I go on these tangents. I get so excited. I'm like, and I said, I'm going to try to explain to show you maybe of what, because you could tell this client, Nathan, sometimes you get clients that feel like they don't even know how complicated the game is. Like it's like they're thinking that they're viewing everything in a 2-dimensional world.
Very binary.
For black and white. But I'm like, dude, there's like a rainbow here. There's like
it's like I can either fight or not fight, or I'm stronger or not stronger, or this person has this ability up, and there's so many levels.
And I knew that everything I was going to show him, I said, look, this is not practical. This doesn't count in your journey, but I want to show you something just to get you excited about what's possible in the game. Yeah. And so what we're seeing in this clip is the game of me playing this lower.
This was the Emerald game. This was the Flex game. The Flex game.
And what happened to this point in the game is that I had not actually once during the entire lane phase E'd on this ASOL, because his ASOL was being very respectful and I didn't have the space and time and knowledge to actually do so. What ended up happening is that I was at a point in the game where I was now strong enough to do so. But because the ASOL, I was aware, people are going to think this is ridiculous. I was aware of how he was viewing me. I was aware of the pattern that I had set. And so I knew in this instance, as a Galio, I could actually walk up, not backclick, and simply E on his face and kill him. Now, people would look at this and be like, this is really basic. As in, like,
it looks so basic.
You're not doing anything fancy here. This guy's just an idiot. No, if I was that ASOL, I would have done the same thing. This Galio, me in this case, I have never E'd once aggressively in the entire early lane.
So this is where we talk about psychology.
Yeah.
For 15 minutes, you trained ASOL that you're not threatening.
That's correct.
And then suddenly, 15 minutes, you change that pattern of behavior. Yeah. That is a human psychological thing.
I literally said this. I trained him like an animal. It sounds ridiculous. I was literally training my lane opponent like an animal. I can go, when I play an Everboard, it actually feels like the person I'm versing is my pet, and I'm just dragging him around. Now, I know exactly what he's thinking. I know what he's feeling. I know when he's overwhelmed. I know when he's angry. I could literally read him as a person from the game and his movement in the game. Now, that's going to sound ridiculous to people that maybe relatively new to the game, but I promise you this is real. I'm setting patterns. I'm breaking patterns. I literally know everything that he's thinking and feeling in the game. So I can do things that would shatter his worldview just like that.
It's like when you guys play a game and this, let's say an aggressive type champion, let's say like a Clay. What's the aggressive mid laners, Curtis? An Aurelia or something like that. How about Aurelia? Aurelia. They've been trying to go in on you every single time. So think about what you've been trained to do. It's like, okay, well, if there's a bunch of minions that are low HP, she's going to collapse. So I need to really respect the distance. That's training you essentially. So you're ready for that. So this is a granted situation where you've trained him a certain way and then broken that pattern. Like it's very easy. It's actually easy to play against those players that are always aggressive. know?
Yeah, because you know exactly what they're going to
Yes.
do. Exactly.
There's no levels to it. It's like, okay, maybe Aurelia is on this wave, decides not to go on it, or this wave, you know, you see what
Yeah,
I'm
no,
saying?
totally. And this is why Smurfing is so toxic, because the Smurfs who are playing don't even realize what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't going to bring it up, but I think for the sake of the conversation, it might be interesting. I
Okay.
sent you this video. I love Alois. I had him on my Alois, you know, the top lane guy. I had him on my
did
YouTube.
a
We had a
YouTube
great
video.
discussion. I think
Yeah.
he's an amazing top lane coach. He does some amazing stuff. And I was curious about his interpretation of Darius. I was watching some of his Darius content. And look, I know everyone's critical of Alois smurfing. And look, I'm not here to judge. He can.
I
do
mean,
whatever-
it's educational
It's
content regardless.
educational.
It's
He's
helpful.
not doing it to smurf on people.
Yeah.
He's doing it to teach, and
That's
I respect
right.
that, right?
Correct.
But I just want to kind of highlight. There's one thing that I saw here that really exemplifies the toxic nature of smurfing. And I know he's not doing this intentionally. He's just playing the game. But look at this moment here. So basically, what he's playing, he's playing Darius into Jace. Now, a high-level concept, what challenger players and very high-level players can do, is that they can move in a way that influences the enemy's movement. So we do these things like wiggles, back clicks, forward in a way where we're actually kind of influencing how the enemy move. So a common way in what I teach for high-level clients is the concept of short and long clicks, whereby I'll do some long strides, short, sharp turns, and you can do long clicks and long and short clicks in combination with setting a pattern, breaking a pattern, and that can allow you to force tethering issues or tethering mistakes upon the enemy. Now, him in this case, he's trying to get in range to get an E off onto the Jace, which should be illegal. But when you look at this, he's like walking up and wiggling. He's like doing these back clicks, and look what he did. I'll kind of get some context here. So he's like walking up, he's like walking forward, and then he walks straight up in. Now, look at what he did there. He did really long strides.
He has no intention to aim there.
No.
He already knows what he's going to be doing.
He already knows.
Yeah,
so what
it's
he's doing here,
beautiful
he's
tethering.
creating a pattern. This is subconscious.
Yes.
Alois is doing this subconsciously.
Yeah.
He's actually walking at him, seeing how this guy will respond, creating a pattern. Look, he walks in a really long straight line, walks back in a straight line, turns back, doing little weaves, boom. And then because he can do these little back clicks, he's got the micro, he's got the pattern recognition, he's able to take this really good trade that completely changes the trajectory of the lane. Now the way he's bouncing out, he's taking this trade and the lane's over. Now, a player in this ELO bracket is not going to be able to do this. This one move, being able to land the E on this Jace here, is, even though what he's doing is, yes, fundamental League of Legends, and I agree with that, and I think he's teaching a good thing, but like, this is stuff that a platinum 4 Darius is not going to do. They
Simply
don't have
not capable of.
They
Yeah.
just don't have the sophisticated
They
pattern
don't have the
recognition.
mental stack
They
free
don't
to
have
be able to do
They're
this.
thinking about getting ganked. This guy's tracking the jungler
Yeah.
and CSing perfectly,
Perfectly.
and knowing his reference points, and, you know, he knows it all. But again, it's because he's developed a beautiful mental stack. And again, I think Alois has great intention, but I think it's a great example to show, I guess the muscle memory that a high level player has developed, and they're doing this without even realizing
It's all subconscious.
It's like, here I go. I just walk up and I get there, and that's it. Boom. It's just
That's
like,
but that's how you would explain it.
That's
isn't
how
it?
you would explain. Because you can't explain it any
It's
other
so
way.
it's
It's like, how
you would have to like sit there and break it down like we're doing right here, which you can't do in a game, obviously.
You can't do that, and again, you can't do that in live commentary.
Yeah.
And this is stuff you teach. I teach this in my Midland Academy, like the short and long clicks and everything, and setting a pattern, breaking a pattern. But this is not stuff that I would talk about until Diamond 2 Plus.
Yeah.
This is not something that I would do below in Emerald. I wouldn't even do this in Emerald, really. I would do this in probably Diamond Plus, This is quite advanced micro. Because you need to tick so many other boxes before you even get to this point. You don't even have the mental capacity to think like this. So, this is something that, so imagine, I try to empathize, like, let's say there is a Darius who's in gold, and they're playing this matchup, and like, I just can't land my E. They're not even, like, imagine, like, how would this person come to this conclusion as a gold player? Oh yeah, I got to wiggle, I got to like do these short long clicks, I got to like get in his head and then somehow get him to come into, like, that's not even in the realm of possibility to even think that that's not even like a possibility that you would think of in your wildest dreams. It's like, what the hell? Like,
This is what I need to do to hit an E.
yeah, like, it's like,
A Darius
you know what I
E?
mean? Like, it's not intuitive. So
No.
like, I don't expect someone to be able to do this. So my point here is that what I'm trying to get across, I guess, long story short, is if you're struggling in your journey and it may not be apparent to you what you could be doing better. That's okay. I'm with you. And you shouldn't be expecting to be able to do this. But just know that there are levels to this game, and that I promise you, the system works for a reason. If someone is in a higher ELA bracket, they were doing things differently to you. It may not look different. You may even look at their VODs. You will not even see what they are doing. No. You don't even know what they're doing, because someone watching my gameplay doesn't know how I'm thinking. I'm thinking about all these things that from the naked eye, you would have no clue.
But a player of your skill level would be able to break that.
That's
they
exactly
see what you're
right.
doing, yes.
So you can only play slightly above the level that you're at. Yes. And Emerald 4 needs to get focused on getting to Emerald 3, and then to Emerald 2, and then to Emerald 1. You don't go from Emerald 4 to Challenger. But just know that there are levels. There's another door. It may not be obvious to you now. As long as you adopt that curious, open mind, and you know that that door exists. There is another room there with those objects in there. I promise you that. As long as you know that's in the back of your mind, you'll be all good. But never lose faith. That's the thing. Be inspired. Get inspired by other people. Know that there is another room. That's my main point.
Love it. I love League of Legends, Curtis. And this is, where people just need to, after that game, don't go blaming your teammates. Don't go look at the LP, you win or lose, because this is what's so much more exciting. This is
why I think there is this detachment sometimes with us in the community. It's like, and look, we empathize, because when someone says we bring a VOD and be, oh, my teammate this and it's like, okay, I understand, and I can understand why you feel like
correct.
That. I would be the same if I were in your shoes as well. We're not better than you. We literally just had these experiences. Right, we're in a privileged position to have played the game for so long and studied the game, right? So we're here to say, okay, well, this is what's going on. But if you just have a deep respect for the difficulty of the game, you can actually bypass that to a certain degree. You can be like, okay, I'm pissed off, but if that was someone else, there's probably things they could have done. So why don't I try to figure that out?
Figure it out.
Just take some
problem solve.
Try and take something away from it. And again, it doesn't need to be perfect, but there's something there. And just really try and. Again, with a curious mind, will take you a long way. It may not. You're not going to solve all the answers. You don't have all the answers, but you'll be on the right track at least. So yeah, just thought that was interesting. This episode is sponsored by mid.gg. Now they've listened to your guys' feedback. The feedback that you guys gave was, where are all the Korean streamers? How can I watch Faker? How can I watch Chovy? How can I watch Deft?
I want to watch the best players in the world.
And they've listened, guys. They've listened. So now what they've done is they've integrated majority of the Korean pro players onto the platform. So here I can go ahead, type in Faker, and then boom, here I can already take a look at all of Faker's recent VODs. If I want to look at Chovy's VODs, I can click here, type in Chovy, boom, I'm already here looking at Chovy's POV VODs, which for those of you who have actually tried to find these VODs is actually a pain in the ass. And especially for streamers who are not already natively streaming on Twitch, who stream on a Freaker or some of these other kind of platforms, it's really, really hard to find them. So they've done a really great job of integrating these ones straight onto the mid.gg platform.
You can sort by champion, matchup here. As we can see, Chovy, obviously he's at MSI right now. So 2 weeks ago he streamed. He's been playing a bit of Aurelion Sol, Hui. You can look at his build runes. Everything's in here. Head over to mid.gg or link in description of this video. Download the app and get to learning some matchups. Great experience there, Curtis. Thank God that the ranked queue was down because of the transition of the thing.
Because that's what gave me that thought. I wouldn't have had that thought.
Yeah. All right, well, this is going to tie a bit into our next topic. There was a Reddit post 8 days ago here from someone by the name of Katsutis, and this post here got 2.8 thousand upvotes, and there was 600 comments. And the title of this Reddit post was, Master is an extremely high rank, and Master players are very good at the game. TLDR, being good at anything takes time and effort. You should be proud of your rank, or whatever it is, and even more proud of the hard work that got you there. Recently I saw a lot of comments saying that Master is trash. Those guys can't play the game. Mickey Mouse rank. It's ridiculous that being in the top 0.67% of something can be considered bad. That's why I wanted to provide some real life examples of being top 1% to make it easier to imagine. I picked 1% as it was easier to find the data, so keep in mind the actual disparity is likely even greater. So what he did was he showed the top 1% of annual income in the US. So the top 1% earns almost 800,000. And then he did a height. And the top 1% for height in the US means you're at least 5'10" for women and at least 6'4" for men. So that's quite tall for the top 1%. And then IQ, the top 1% means an IQ of at least 135. And the average for IQ was 100. And the average height for a male was 5'9". And the average wage was 61,000. So he goes on to say, now imagine if you heard someone say that a 6'4" guy isn't that tall. 800K means nothing because Jeff Bezos makes that in an hour, and people with an IQ of 135 are dumb because Einstein's was higher. You'll think they are crazy, and you'll be right. Yet for some reason there is a popular take on this subreddit that being in the top 0.67% of the ranked ladder is not that good. High elo starts at rank 1. Everyone below that is bad. They aren't good enough to go pro. Why even bother queuing up? I don't know if that's parodying what streamers pro players say, an ego boost of, yeah, I'm gold, but Masters is trash too, or Justice Community's impossible standards. But I think this should be the norm. Thanks for reading and best of luck, fellow challengers. So there was a response by a challenger player here by the name of Karasmai, Kane player. We've actually, I think we did some gameplay review of him as to show an example between a high elo and a low elo Kane that we did, remember, in one of our clips. So really good Kane player on the North America server. And this is sort of a very common sort of challenger perspective. So what we'll do, we'll read his post here, his response to this, this Masters post on Reddit here. And then what I sort of want to do is sort of explore why people think Masters is so bad in League. Try to put it in their shoes. I don't want this to be a hate thread on the challenger. Like, let's try and understand where challenger players
are like a high level exploration.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
So this was what Karasmai said. So browsing Reddit League Legends, and I absolutely hate posts like this in reference to the post that we just read about the top 1% being really good in any field. And it should be for League of Legends as well. So Karasmai says, as someone who has been challenger for 9 years and always plays in Master Plus lobbies 3,000 to 4,000 games a season, I will 100% say Masters is horrible in caps. Now, my opinion alone doesn't matter, but as someone who also has a community which intertwines with high elo very often, I can tell you every single one of the friends or players I've interacted with who has hit Masters will 100% say this elo is 10 times worse than they thought it would be, or just completely dumbfounded at the lack of skill required to actually be a Masters player. Now, I don't make this post as a way to diminish one's accomplishments, but to encourage players to improve. In my honest opinion, if you are capable of climbing out of Diamond, you're more than capable of hitting Grandmaster. And unfortunately for a lot of players, this is the hardest milestone. A large majority of players who buy boosts or buy accounts, final destination will usually be low Masters. 0 point in getting a challenger account because of the decay system. And a lot of players will simply just stop trying after achieving Masters, which usually leads to playing casually or for funning. This, alongside with very inconsistent MMR, can make your games incredibly coin flip, and not to mention the fact that most scripters were all stuck in Masters simply lacking the macro to climb to challenger. Along with the issues stated above, the ego, lack of care really is what holds players back. The amount of games I've been soft-inted in this elo for simply having my own playstyle is equivalent to a silver lobby, when in actuality the macro-micro of your average Masters player is around Emerald MMR just with spamming games you can climb. I genuinely see little to no difference between Emerald and low Masters. A lot of these players do what I call playing by the book. They only think in graphs and statistics and simply lack the ability or care to adapt to certain situations, thus causing a very one-dimensional, stubborn mentality that leads to them being another low elo, hard-stuck rage baby. In my honest opinion, the best attributes to attain to hit challenger or stay challenger is one's ability to adapt. I don't think really we need to go into that. One last and final point I will openly admit, and I am a part of the problem for Master players, because a large amount of Challenger players will play in Masters to either learn new champs or try new things. So I don't want to act like I'm not negatively impacting this elo myself. but hopefully next split. Okay. So you want to start with Curtis trying to get into the perspective of Karasmai here?
Yeah. I want to really go deep on this one, Nathan.
Okay.
Let's go deep on this one. So, I want to dissect first things first. So I want to start with his perspective, like why he might think that this way. I think there's many levels. The first one that I want to touch on is that I think that, I do see where he's coming from in terms of like, okay, so it's almost like there's this time and it happens not with every player, but with certain players whereby they evolve through master to a grandmaster to challenger, and you're almost like you take this pill whereby you start to view the game holistically. You go from kind of this very narrow view of the game where it's okay, it's like me and maybe my mid jungle 2v2 if I'm a mid laner, or top my matchups and me and maybe the jungler, and you're not really thinking big picture about the game. And a big part of making that climb Master Plus is starting to think kind of not just about me anymore. It's about the game holistically.
Playing the map.
Yeah, and even just getting a little bit creative, And I think that where he's probably coming from is he feels frustrated by the lack of creativity and the lack of effort. Like that is the way it can feel like it manifests. Even though I don't necessarily believe that, I do think that I can see from someone who is on the other side.
It looks like an effort problem, but really it's just their skill level.
Exactly. It looks like an effort problem, and it looks like that person doesn't care. And maybe that might be the case for some of the players, but I think there is this weird kind of like moment in a challenger player's journey where like they whether or not they're aware of it, they think bigger picture about the game. It's like, that person's going to do that and how that's going to impact. But if I do that, my bot lane's going to die. Like you might be trying to dive top, but it's like, you might second guess that. It's like, well, if I go top, then my bot's going to die and bot's my win con. Okay, but I should actually reset and go bot. Or like you're starting to think bigger picture about the game. You know what I mean? Like and win cons and how comps interact. And so this is knowledge that he has accrued and he feels is common sense. He feels as though, people who are in master should make more of an effort to push and develop this skill set. And he feels I'm assuming he feels as though players that are in master could do better, but they're just not pushing. And so he's like in a way trying to motivate people. I think it's in a weird roundabout way. I do feel as though even though it comes across incredibly toxic and elitist, it does feel as though he is trying to maybe motivate people who are in master tier to just get their shit together and put more effort in. I'm just trying to steel man his perspective here.
Yeah.
Do you kind of see where I'm coming from?
I do, yes. From, again, big picture, from his perspective.
Yes, from his perspective.
It looks like a master player is not trying.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Because, challenger to master, very big gap. So this is, now I'm going to go into just more about his perspective. So and this is the problem with challenger players. And just where I've beaten this horse to death on this this podcast, talking about how stone age we're currently in terms of gaming, people's perception of gaming, because subconsciously, me, you, Karasmai, everyone who's been playing League of Legends Challenger, we grew up being told by parents, friends, everything, gaming it's not a serious thing, right? Being good at gaming doesn't matter. So everyone has this inbuilt subconscious that it's actually not this skill. So already that's subconscious. We actually can't even fight. We've actually been trained. You have to be really thinking outside the box, sort of, I guess, what we are, because we've seen and we spent so much time with lower ranked players. We can sort of break that subconscious because we understand what goes into
we had to break that. Like, I think
we did.
Took years.
Yeah.
It took
with
years.
the help of someone like Jono as well. That he was a big one for sparking it.
Yeah, for sure.
So we need to understand that's the current subconscious. They're being told that their skill in this game, even from their peers, it doesn't matter about their peers, it's about their parents and people they're respected, you know? Like, let's say if they think about their skill compared to an athlete, they'll be like, I don't even really compare to that. That's not the same, right? So that's subconscious. Next thing here is with challenger players, and again, with just how young in the industry, Karasmai's in his, I think, early 20s. We're in our 20s. Most challenger players, I don't think there's very any that are past 30 years old.
I think there are, but very few.
Very few. And just the way that gaming is that and the way that, to maintain challenger, those players would just drop off or just move on to other parts of their life. People that actually had that experience and maybe articulate this better, or coaches.
Yeah, I agree. Like, he's still very young.
Yeah, that's right. So
yeah.
So our view of League is, and every challenger player, I'd love for everyone to just accept this. Like, we are very, very bad at explaining the game. We can't explain these subconscious things very well.
Even for us who literally teach the game for a living, even we struggle.
Extremely
Like,
hard.
I struggle sometimes. Like, I'm overwhelmed.
If I'm not on point with trying to explain, I will have shit review sessions.
Yeah.
I had one this week where I was like, that was horrendous.
That was horrendous, yeah.
Like, that's just, I knew I fell into that trap again of like, I'm the higher player. You should know this,
you
right?
You should just know this, yeah.
Right? So this is what we have to battle. And we...
But for someone like Karasmai, who's not an actual coach,
and
doesn't explain his thought process and doesn't need to explain his thought process, he hasn't actually developed the skill to be thoughtful about actually breaking down the underlying skills. He's played thousands of games at a challenger level. For years. He has such a deep understanding of the game. It's literally, he has won with League. He can't even detach himself. He can't even, he genuinely wouldn't be able to know what it was like to not have these skills.
No.
It's like you're completely embedded into the game. Like, you remember what I was talking about before with the Smurfing and Emerald. I am one with my champion. I'm so joined with the game. I can read the person. I can literally read the personality of the person playing that champion for within 8 minutes of a game. It's freakish. That sounds ridiculous, but it's true. I can read the body language. But that is something that, again, I didn't even know I was doing until I started to try and teach the game and be like, oh, wow, why am I doing that? And so basically what me and you've done, Nathan, for years now is now being like, well, we do this. Why do we do that? Why do we make that decision? That's the question.
Why do we do that? Yes.
And then you do that again and again and again and again.
And why does that one player do that? What's the psychology? What's the narrative
around that? And why does that guy
that?
not do that?
Yeah. That's right. That's
and
what
that's basically we've done for years.
Asking that question every day.
For hours and hours a day.
Probably hundreds of times a day, yeah.
Hundreds of times a day for years.
And when we actually don't get to the conclusion, it takes a long time.
And sometimes we're still struggling.
Yeah, we're still struggling.
Think about that. Just put that in perspective.
Yeah.
So how the hell does Karasmai have... And I empathize with him. He wouldn't understand. This is so far above... He doesn't develop the skill.
Yeah, he doesn't develop the skill. So any challenger player could do... I mean, obviously there's lots of things, like you could say anyone could do anything, right?
Yeah.
But spend the time and put the dedication and be incentivized to sort of do that as well to build this skill. But so challenger players could do it, but it's so hard. They don't even have the words or the language or the vocabulary to be able to do that.
So what you're saying, it's a combination of the people who actually are this level of the game. They literally just don't have the skill of breaking down what they're doing,
and they can't
articulate it because they're young.
That's right, and just immature
and immature as well. They're not really thinking deeply about it. Yeah, they've got this.
He doesn't need to think about what's the difference between an Emerald and a Master Tier player. There's no benefit. There's no benefit to him.
Yeah, I totally agree.
But going back from the beginning of this podcast, you talking about Emerald, that statement so laughable about. He thinks Master players like mechanically are like Emerald.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
so detached.
It's crazy that's even. It's crazy that a 20-something-year-old could even say that. You know what I mean? Like we live in a world in which a 9-times challenger player could literally put that sentence together.
Yeah.
We live in that day and age. Yeah. We are living in that day and age where this is where League is.
We're in the Stone Ages.
We are literally in the Stone Ages. Yeah. Like, you would never, ever, ever hear that with an elite, someone who's elite at their craft in any other craft.
That's right.
They would be able, because the craft has been around for so long. All these other sports. They've had coaches. Yeah. The craft is maybe more solved. We're still barely figuring out the game as it is.
So I'll say this. I think that the high elo challenger community has completely failed the general player base to educate through the big streamers, They've completely
But
failed.
no fault
really.
of their own.
No fault of their own.
No fault of their own.
But let's not get confused why the rest of the community is confused, because it's a trickle down.
It's a trickle down effect.
Everyone's just like lashing at each other. You're bronze.
Because if all the challenges are at the top, right? They're the streamers. They're the big content creators.
Yeah.
They're the best players.
Yeah.
So then everyone's going to look up to them, and then it's just like it's a ladder, right? And then everyone just looks higher. They're looking up, right? They're not looking down. They're looking up.
And master tier players, they're like scared of challenger players because they get shit on with all the time saying you're low master and you suck and all that. There's like that narrative, like everyone's isolated themselves. Like challenger players are there. It's like, I actually think about it in terms of like a cafeteria in like high school. You have the challenger kids table, right? The grandmaster kids table, the master tier kids player,
sure.
The diamond kids table, and they never know what each other's perspective is,
and that's
they
why
all just sit there with like the diamond guys, that's what it's like. It's like a high school.
And then also that's why you always hear that. I love the quote here where it said that people, I'll actually get the quote here because I think I don't want to kind of misquote him here. He said, here we go. Sorry, give me one moment. Blah, blah. Okay, so a lot of players will simply... Okay, so I can't really find it here, but you remember the point where he's saying how people who climb to master, they say that master tier is low quality?
Oh, yeah, here we go.
Where is that bit? Oh, here we go. Yeah, I can tell you every single one of the friends or players I've interacted with who has hit masters will 100% say this elo is 10 times worse than they thought it would be, or just completely dumbfounded at the lack of skill required to actually be a masters player. Now, that's really interesting. And you see this at all ranks. You don't just see this at diamond to go to master. You see the same thing with people going from emerald to diamond, or you see the same thing with people going from platinum to emerald, because tying back to your cafeteria analogy, you don't know what's going on over there at that table. You can only assume. You can have these. You've heard whispers of what's going on that table over there, or maybe some rumors that are spread around the camp. I've heard that the Master Chief players, they're all idiot people, know, and that's spread around the whole cafeteria, right? Yeah. So by the time you actually get there, it's like, wait, is this really, or like, you know what I mean? Like, you never actually know the reality, and so I think that
you will actually sit on the master tier table. It's like, oh, that's actually a pretty good guy. Like, oh, he's actually pretty good.
Or you'll get people that get to master and they're so conditioned with the narrative that they will actually talk themselves down to the point where they actually now think that this is the trash level of play. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they've actually conditioned themselves into thinking that I am this bad. I am just bad. They literally talk down on themselves. So I think that, there is always this feeling of like the next rank is always going to be this massive skill gap and they're going to be so much better. But this ties into your point, Nathan, whereby people don't really know what the game is actually about.
No, we're
still very early on.
I genuinely think that the challenger players could all come together and they could figure out how to explain it. They absolutely
come up with terminology.
Exactly. and then be like, and then actually realize, this is what Emerald, and like even sit down with us and we can explain why an Emerald player is playing this way.
Crystal clear.
All crystal clear.
I can explain it very clearly all the way up to, I can actually explain every rank. It's actually crystal clear.
That's right. If you were to be bothered to look, but you're going to be lazy. You don't need, you're a streamer. Like, you have no incentive, right?
But I also think as well, Nathan, think about it right. This is going a little bit deeper here. Think about the average player, right, who climbs the Soliculator. They've probably ingested content on YouTube or Twitch, and it's the same narratives, isn't it? It's high elo people smurfing and dominating everyone, or a high elo people going into a lower elo bracket and then when they lose, complaining that everyone's trash, or it's all the same narratives, right? So my point being is that no one knows any better. That is like these people that making these videos, like that's what they've been brought up with.
Yeah,
so,
that's right. Yeah. So unfortunately, you're brought up with someone like Karasmai, you'll challenge, you'll look up to, and you're like, that's. So what
you think that climbing and being good at the game is having 21 kills as well. You know what I mean? Like, if a challenge player is playing in Master or Diamond, of course they're going to get a lot of kills. But that's what you think. You think that climbing that's what you think a player is going to be. Like, you have this idea that when you climb to a new rank that they're going to be insane. They're going to be like, they're going to, they're going to be carrying and there's going to be all this high level of play. But like in reality, it's just that person's just got a slightly more developmental stack.
And just doing the basic boring things more consistently.
That's the biggest shock as well for people. It's like the basics of the game is the hardest thing.
People completely have no idea.
They have no idea.
Basics,
They absolutely have no idea. And that's the shell shocking thing. It's like, oh my God, the truth's out. It's actually playing really basic League of Legends, like great fundamentals, great matchup understanding. It's like, this is what I always say. Knowing what to do is not the hard bit. It's the executing. That's the real determining factor. And in order to execute, you've got to have such a sophisticated mental stack. And developing that mental stack, that's at the heart of climbing in League of Legends, which is so goddamn hard to do. And then I think there's the other factor there as well, Nathan. If all of your friends and people are high elo, then it's just an echo chamber. It's the same things being repeated over and over and over again. So it's very difficult to step out the crowd. And we know that. We've been in that community before. You get shunned. If you have a differing opinion, people exile you.
Yeah, we have been exiled.
We have been exiled in our community before. We're not even liked in our OS community.
No.
We're literally shunned from the OS community, which has been, people always are so shocked when they join our community that they always think that there'd be a lot of OS people. We're not actually liked in OS.
No.
But basically majority of the entire high-elo OS community don't like Nathan and I.
We're on a different cafeteria table.
We are, it's like the BBC, me and Nathan are over there. We're in a corner.
Yeah.
Because people, again, we've had our opinions about stuff and we differ in our take to a lot of people and people don't like that. Because if you're sitting on a cafeteria people where there is 50 people with the same opinion and then there's 2 people that have a differing opinion, rather than actually listening with an open mind and being like, okay, maybe these guys actually have something to teach us, or maybe there's a reason why they're saying that stuff. It's easier just to ignore them, push them to the side, say they're idiots, and push them out of the circle, right? And let them do their thing. And we've just been like, all right, we're not going to engage. We're not going to convince you. We're not going to sit here and beg and be like, you got to do what we're going to. This is our philosophy.
But we had to do that so we could start. We had to start thinking outside the box, or actually look at this.
Right.
This. I mean, no one's a challenger players again. They're not going to spend time looking at low elo play unless you're a coach. There's very few.
Because we were the same.
Very few. Yeah, we would never. And
we would never.
You're just on a different. You're in a different level, thinking about the different game. You're scrimming all day. I don't blame them for. I don't blame them either. It's like we're trying to do something else.
So in a way, it's like where we're currently at. If you were to just do a very high level kind of synopsis of where the league community is at, you've got a series of very young young people dictating the I guess the narratives or the view of what it means to be a high elo player, explained in very poor terms by no fault of their own because they haven't actually spent the time to really understand what they are doing. They fundamentally don't understand what they're doing because you think at a subconscious level, they're not really viewing League as a skill. It's just a thing that you do, a game that you play. You just get better at it if you just try.
And just put in time. And
everyone should be able to do that. So if they can do it, surely anyone else can do it because they don't think they're special.
Yeah.
But they don't think they're special because they discredit their entire gaming history, how long they've played the game for, et cetera, their dedication and obsession about the game. They just think that's a given and everyone should do that. And so that's the norm. And so that because they are then the high level players, they're looked up upon. So their opinions are taken very seriously.
And no one says no to them.
You can't question them because if they try to question them, they just call you a master tier idiot or a low elo idiot. Well, I'm challenger. What do you? So you can't talk. So they're on a pedestal. No one can question them. The only person that can question them are people at the same rank. But if you are the same rank that have different opinions, they shun you anyway. So it's a lose-lose scenario. So we're in a scenario whereby it's kind of like a stalemate. The only way it can change is through time, and then the people that are developing a beautiful understanding about the game and climbing through a proper understanding of the game will then be able to only then will the narratives.
I guess it's just really simply because again, you have to be incentivized to look deeply at why the rank system is the way it works and where people's skill is. You just need a bunch of really high challenger players to be coaches.
Which we're getting there slowly.
Yeah.
We are seeing it slowly but surely, but it's going to take time
because they realize how much they're starting to realize. They start working with a goal player and they're like, wow, I got a lot of work to do. That thought just needs to click, and then it starts to shift your view of things. So I think it will come with time.
It will come with time.
Speaking of coming with time, so we talk a lot about this podcast, inspiration from other industries, right? There's this bodybuilder that's popped up on my YouTube.
You love your bodybuilding,
short.
Nathan.
I love my...
So every episode we're talking about bodybuilding.
We do, even though I have no idea what I'm talking about.
You're a bloody bodybuilder, Nathan.
But I have done some research on this guy that's popped up on my feed, this Mike Mentzer guy, right? And he was the first... He's dead now. You know, we're talking about the 70s or whatever. He was the first bodybuilder, like, intellectual to come about. And he started explaining... he's famous for actually popularizing high-intensity training. So the idea of, you know, it's just people just thought it was just you just lift weights for all day, right? But he started to think about intensity. And yeah, he was actually shunned and stuff as well. But I want to just actually show you guys a couple of shorts about, again, the level that he was explaining bodybuilding. And just think about how far away we are, or someone like Karasmai, from explaining the craft like this. So we've got 2 50-second shorts for you guys here.
I don't know what the hell you're going to show me. I'm interested to see what I see here.
Just listen to his language, you know?
Started training 6 days a week for up to 3 hours per session. And as I wasn't making progress doing that, I assumed I'd have to train 4 hours a day, but wasn't sure at that point it was worth it. As I was working 12-hour shifts in the Air Force, working a part-time job, trying to spend as much time as possible with my girlfriend, the thought of training 4 hours a day wasn't very appealing. Just as I was about to forsake my dream of ever becoming a bodybuilding champion, I met Casey Viator, who introduced me to Arthur Jones, who introduced me to high-intensity training theory. During a 1-hour phone call, Mr. Jones disabused me of the notion that I was an expert on the subject. He launched into an impassioned disquisition on the subject of the fundamentals of anaerobic exercise physiology. I was stunned, not just about what he said, which was brilliant, but more so how he said it. No one who ever lifted weights grew larger without growing stronger. It just doesn't happen. It was discovered by exercise scientists long ago that the strength of a muscle is related to the size of its cross-sectional area. Many are still confused on this subject because they see some who are smaller, who possess less muscle mass, that can lift more weight than other larger, more heavily muscled individuals. The mistake here is in attempting to draw a meaningful comparison between two different individuals. The fact is that the man with smaller muscles will grow larger only as he grows stronger, and likewise, the larger man will grow larger still only as he grows stronger.
I just get so excited when I hear people talk about the craft or ask these questions or be open-minded. You know how he talks about he got in the core and then he realized he just knew nothing, you know, in terms of explaining. He said it wasn't what he said, it was actually the way he said it. So again, but this is like I want to see like these people come in to League of Legends,
right?
These challenger players to start, you know, talking, respecting the game, talking about the game this way. And I think again will come with time, and it's just fascinating. These individuals that come and just change a sport. And we're sort of waiting for this.
We're just waiting for this. Yeah, we're waiting for that one person to come in and just completely just.
And I hope that this episode is sort of the spark in maybe the next generation, or maybe some other challenger player that's like listening to this, or maybe even Grandmaster player wants to push and just start, you know, talking and thinking about their journey. How can I describe it? Actually, what is the difference between me and a master tier player?
Yeah, I think the closest we've got to this is a Gurren, I would say. Gurren was one of the ones that actually started to break it down. Like he got like rank 1, right, in Korea. And actually broke down like his philosophies. Like, I just do this. I say no to this. I wouldn't go to this gang because, and I farm camps. And people were still critical of him. I don't think he has the maybe the
charisma.
The charisma.
Yeah. Like you hear Mike Mentzer talk. He's just, you know, there's no likes or arms. Just this is what it is. This is very.
Because I actually think, I really do think that he has a really good philosophy on the game. But he doesn't have the personality behind it to really make it a movement. You know, I guess we also saw Azap with his like kind of the no FF kind of movement. I thought that was really cool as well, which is probably the closest thing we've seen. That's like a cool, awesome high elo player talking about their solo queue philosophy. But that's what you mean, right? These high elo players. So,
but even someone like Azap, you know, they're sort of like a streamer. You know, they're not really investigating.
They're not the high level players, is what you mean?
No, I'm talking about he doesn't spend all his day trying to think about what's the difference between him and a master tier Valkos, or, you know.
Right, it's not like he's a full-time coach or something. Is what you're saying.
Correct.
Right,
yes.
Interesting. I also think though, Nathan, it's incredibly difficult to be a high-level challenger player and a coach.
Exactly right.
It's very hard.
Extremely difficult. That's why there's so few.
That's why there's so few.
Yeah.
Because you just,
I mean,
it's
for
just
us,
time investment.
show what our journey of, especially over the last couple of months. I haven't played in Challenger for months now. I literally have not played a single Challenger game since November of last year.
Yeah, I play Master Tier games, Grandmaster. I'm not a Challenger player
because we're so busy with our programs and we're thinking about how to help a gold player, not how to get Challenger anymore. And we're trying to figure out. And
we just found as though the trade-off just wasn't worth it.
Yeah,
in time. We could push. I could push it again.
But I think we can get back once we've sort of we're stabilized in.
For now, yeah.
Once we get better and better and better at this, then we'll have sort of a free mental stack to start pursuing Challenger again.
Yeah, but yeah, I see where you're coming from though. I was confused as to why you wanted to show this, but I can definitely see what you mean. It's like, where is the Mike Mentzer of League comparatively?
You need probably many.
You need many.
Yeah.
There's just one. You need many.
And in bodybuilding was around for many years, and it's not until someone like that who just, comes and breaks the grain.
And it's not that they have all the answers. They inspire other people to question.
Yes.
It's like they're just thinking in a different way. And it's like, oh, wow. This guy's really good at what he does, and he's thinking in that way. Wow, what does that mean for me? What do I think? What do I really think? Do I need to start questioning all these? Like, if I have all these beliefs and they're proving to be maybe not correct, what does that actually mean?
It's like Karasmai asking the question to himself: why is it that I think? Like, specific. Why is a Master Tier player have the mechanics of an Emerald player? Is that true? But there's no questioning. How could that be the case that they're Master Tier?
But there needs to be the questioning,
yes.
and we're hoping to try and inspire people to even ask that question and be a little bit more thoughtful, which is hard. And I will say something. I'm going to say something uncomfortable, Nathan. And this is where maybe League is and the gaming industry is quite different to a lot of other industries. Is that there are a lot of people that are very, very good at the game, but by nature of how they got good at the game, they're incredibly insecure individuals. And gaming,
because it's very isolating.
It's
an isolating experience.
Like if you think about the journey of becoming a bodybuilder, you're in a gym all the time, probably surrounded with other people, talking to other trainers. You know what I mean? Like you're not. I doubt that would be a very isolating. I mean, I'm sure there are isolating elements, but
getting good at anything is isolating.
But
it's not to the extreme of probably sitting in a room,
literally sitting in your room online. It's just like
the worst thing you could do.
Yeah, it's such a. It's to begin with High Challenge Pro League. It's a very isolating experience, and it's hard, incredibly difficult. And so you're in this world. You're in this world in your head, and so.
Which is interesting because if you actually look at the comments to. His post, all Karasmai's tweet, people call him out. People saying, no, you're just chronically online. People get Masters are extremely good at the video games. That amounts to nothing meaningful for most people. But regardless, Masters is an extremely impressive rank despite the opinions. You should play with casual players and you'll realize Master players are insanely good. So people were actually all calling out, just saying how disconnected he is. So...
But what I'm saying is that, and I don't know Karasmai as an individual. I don't know nothing about him. But my experiences working with players like this is that it's very difficult for them to be open-minded and curious and put their ego aside because they're so insecure. And the sad reality is that a lot of these people being challenger in League is their only achievement. They have nothing, like this is it. Like this is the cornerstone of what got them their confidence. And so if they're wrong about something, if they're proven wrong about something, rather than being like, oh, that's really interesting, it's usually met with a lot of resistance because they're just so...
It's at an identity level, right?
It's at they need to be right. They need to be that person.
That challenger
if
piece.
I'm wrong and I'm this and I'm this good, like, oh my God, like, they're not viewing it through the lens of that they haven't detached their self-worth from their rank. Their self-worth as an individual is 100%, well, not 100%, maybe, very highly correlated with their self-confidence, their in-game performance. They're all aligned. So, I don't want to sit here and make, armchair analyst comments about someone that I don't know, but from the people that I have worked with, that has more often than not been the case. And that's, again, a testament to the current state of where we're at, which I think will change as the average age player of the player base increases.
People get more mature. People
are just more mature and more time. Because we were the same, as naive 21-year-olds playing the game.
I think we knew
back
it
then.
all.
Young whippersnappers thinking we know everything, but we didn't know shit.
We'll end this segment with there was a recent article or interview with G2 Caps, and I mean we haven't seen the rest of MSI yet, but G2 just beat Top Esports 3-0, which were really well. And Caps, what a legend of the game. And this was a comment that he had talking about age. Back then, people were retiring very early. Even me being 20 back then, 21, it was considered very old, right? And most people were retired by that time. It felt a bit weird that I hadn't won Worlds, or it felt like, oh no, I'm not good enough. But I've lost that as a weakness. I think age it's not going to make me worse or better. I think the effort I put in every day decides how well I'll play. And if I win Worlds, it's all up to me. Making excuses like, oh, we're from Europe, or making excuses like, oh, I'm too old, I think it is what it is. Just excuses, and I'm done with those. Imagine someone like Caps, retires in like maybe, hopefully he plays for another 10 years, right? Retires at 35, such as working with players, and, I don't, Caps is still, I think he would struggle to articulate the game, again, what he knows, like, because that guy, what goes on in his mind, guys, like, in a game, like he's very, very good, world-class player. But if he was to pursue down that path,
it'd be fascinating.
That would be fascinating. That'll be groundbreaking,
Yeah.
Like if you actually look at a lot of the people like Bjergsen just gone,
Yeah, all that knowledge is gone. I was thinking about Bjergsen the other day as well, actually. What a shame.
People like a lot of the old pros, like they sort of just really disrespect the game
disappear.
still,
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. I've never thought about that.
So that's what we need. That's what I'll love. And I mean, in comparison with the bodybuilding, like Mike Mentzer was also almost Mr. I think he lost to Arnold in one of the. He was almost Mr. Olympia, as like second or whatever, right? So this guy is at the top, and then started working with people, clients, and all that, and teaching, and that's how he sort of that. I think those interviews were from the end of his like life. I think it was like his last year or two.
Right.
So he probably wasn't talking that way at like 20 in his 20s, probably.
Right.
I think he died when he was like 40 something. But again, get into that sophistication, that explanation of the craft, the discipline, the thinking outside the box. That's what we need. That's what gets me excited. That's what gets me to wake up in the morning. I want to, it might not be us. Hopefully we inspire someone to be someone else. But that's the way that I sort of was what I was thinking when I saw this Karasmai tweet.
Yeah, I love it. It is pretty crazy to think about it, right? Like, 21, you're retiring at 21 or 20. You're old. You're considered old at 22 or 23. I will say one of the big challenges, Nathan, that we got to remember as well, though, in League is the time it takes to get very good at the game. Because this is the challenge, right? I mean, I guess this is the same for any other craft, but the way I view it is, to be a challenger level player, you need to put in so much goddamn time. By the time you're 21, 22, 23, you've probably getting pressure from other people in your life thinking, well, you got to do something, right? You got to go find a job, you got to go study, you got to do all these other things. So it becomes harder and harder the older you get to kind of pursue that level of mastery in League of Legends, because there's all these outside influences.
I mean, I think that's probably would be an excuse. I mean, all these bodybuilders, he says he had 12-hour shifts.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying it's a challenge we
challenge.
face. It's definitely a challenge.
And what we would need to be doing, just like traditional sports, so much time, you have to start them young. They have to start young.
They have to start young.
Yeah.
You have to start young to get to that level anyway.
The best case scenario, the way you would get like, a Mike Mentzer or whatever is like, in League, the way that I view it is like, start playing from like 10 years old, start your pro career, 18, 19, hopefully have like 30-year-old players to sort of like mentor you, like you play with teammates. You eventually get, really good 25, 30, you have a career all the way till 35, retire at 35, and then teach the next generation. That's sort of the path that we need.
Yeah, I agree. But I don't think it has to be that clean, though. I think it even be messier. I think it could be you only go semi-pro. Maybe you're like a collegiate player, or you just get challenger. You're like a top 10 challenger player, but you never really make it to like LCS. You're just kind of like up there, and then like you just stick around as a challenge player, really trying to figure out the game, and it becomes a hobby. Maybe you work, and it becomes a hobby on the side, and then you just stick with it long enough. Then you're like 35 and you're like 40 and then you're still going, and then you can, make breakthroughs, So you don't have to be this super successful person with what I'm saying.
I think so as well.
I think just 100%. Like a high challenger player could do it as well.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Interesting topic.
Yeah.
Interesting. I think it's a really important topic for the League of Legends community and for challenger players to just think. Let's think a little bit more.
Be more thoughtful.
All right, we'll move into some school posts now, which we have said is going to replace our normal Reddit. You know, we're transitioning to our school community. There's a link in description below. If you want to join, it's free. Let's jump in. All right, our first school post comes from Gina. The title of this one is, if you could go back and start your learning journey again, what would you main? Great question. Interesting question. I'll start. I started out as a Soraka support main and deeply regretted it. Ended up quitting the role because I felt I wasn't learning much about the game, works beyond trading and vision. Eventually learned bot lane just so I have some transferable skills from support. I think if I could go back, I'd instead learn top lane through the lens of a simple champion like Garen. Top lane, as I understand, it is very dependent on you knowing the fundamentals, and if you fail there, you will be punished. At the beginning, I think I needed that instead of playing a safe enchanter. What about y'all? What do you think would have improved your journey more? The first thing I'll comment is our Garen guide. Garen guide may look simple. There's so many, going back to the beginning of the episode, there's many doors for Garen. You can take Garen as, you know, I don't want people to be using the word simple for any champ. There's levels of champ mastery all the time. All right, Srirachi says, Nefiri 100%. Sadly, she didn't exist back then. My dumbass learned mid through Katarina instead. You talked a lot about learning Katarina mid. The game through Katarina and Yasuo mid. So why is it bad, Curtis?
Well, they're just very unique kits. It's that simple. They're very unique kits.
No resources, mana.
It's not that you wouldn't learn anything. They definitely teach you a lot about the game, but it's just they're unique in the way that they trade, unique in the way that they impact a game. They're just unique.
They're unique in the role of mid as well.
They're anomalies even within the role. Like you think Yasuo, well, Yasuo is Yasuo. It's not really what you would think of an El Clasico assassin, right? You would think of like an Akali or like a Fizz, you know, like in terms of assassins.
Melee, assassins,
right?
I see.
But then you got Katarina. I guess Katarina does have more archetypal assassin traits. So I guess Katarina is probably better than Yasuo in my opinion, but because like think about Yasuo's trading patterns as well. Your mobility is tied to minions. You also are like incentivized to trade a lot and E a lot because you get more flow based off you Eing, but then when you E forward and trade, you're hitting the wave. So it's like this really messy, complicated kit that revolves a lot around movement and dodging and sustain and in and out. It's just a very complicated kind of messy champion. Katarina at least has a little bit more simplicity in terms of the way you all in someone, but even then it's like, well, you've got like this AoE bouncy blade thing. You're a champion that has your very low range. You've got no CC. Your mobility is very weird. It's like you have this blink, I guess, but only to certain things. And then you have to like you have to like time your all in perfectly. It's just you rely on resets. I guess it does kind of make sense as an assassin, but it's just the way it interacts with the game. It loses a lot of matchups, and if you don't get that early kind of cheesy kill or easy cheesy little level 3 trade, it can be a little bit awkward. So yeah, it's just unique kits. I think that, that's the best way to frame it. Very unique kits. And therefore the skills that they teach don't necessarily translate to a wide variety of other champions. That's, I would say, the biggest critique of those ones.
Fang here says, I would have told myself to actually look for good resources to learn instead of taking advice from friends and spamming games. 1,000 games in my first season. It was COVID era. Please don't judge too harshly. I'm at least happy that I was curious and tried everything, and the champ pool I settled on 5 years ago still mostly holds true to what I play now, but much smaller.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's so hard though, right? Because when you're starting, your friends have maybe played the game before, you're probably going to listen to them. League's one of those very kind of unique things where you can literally get misinformation because the people who get results might not even know why they got results. It's kind of this I wouldn't beat yourself up too much, Fang. I think a lot of us would have done the exact same thing. So it's hard to regret that.
And advice from friends, being around and playing the game with friends, that fun aspect of the game is really important. And it is most to have fun with friends. you know, again, it's hard to sort of think about min-max in your journey. It's like, I should talk to my friends about League for 4 months and then go on my own, you know? It's just
but even also finding resources online is not exactly easy as well, right? There's a lot of weird information out there as well. So I think it's a bit of a lot of landmines, honestly. A lot of landmines.
Price says, I would have started with and stuck with mid. Originally, I was a Thresh one trick in silver, but after I swapped to mid, I rose the ranks quickly. I also got the most results by a huge margin when I stuck to a champion pool within mid, so I would have done that from the beginning. It's interesting because I've never had the regret of choosing the role. Role regret, I think, is a big one that plays a lot of people. Like, I could see that thought process going a lot. Like, what happens if I just started the game playing this role? What would that look like? But you and I never experienced that. I just knew I was mid. I knew I was jungle.
I would say you more so than me, though.
I was more.
You
you played.
I played everything.
Yeah, you played everything.
I remember I literally played every role. But you were like, you actually didn't play a single other role.
No.
You literally went in there, I'm playing jungle. Like, you would just, boom, I knew what I wanted to do. Because I think you just knew the champs that you liked. You just knew what you were looking for. Like, you just liked...
Well, I thought the jungle role was broken by concept because you didn't have to interact with anyone. You could get really strong yourself. That's my narrow view of the game when I first started playing, you know? So I will just win the game.
I just drawn to it.
Playing the map. You know, I like the strategic part of League of Legends more so.
Yeah, but mine was not like that at all. I didn't just go in and be like, I'm going to be a mid laner.
But you did stick on mid pretty quickly.
It was pretty quick. It was within a year.
Yeah.
Within a year, I kind of knew, right? Yeah. But maybe a year or two. But I wouldn't say that it's not like you. I think I played a lot, but I didn't see you do what I did. I played every role, like, actually properly. Like, I actually, like, mained a champion in every role. Like, I got Diamond as a jungler and a top laner and a support. Like, I literally played every role. But you were just like, I love Shaco. I like Udyr. I like, you know, jungle. So, yeah, I think we're both quite different in that sense. But, yeah, I think you're right, though, in saying that question, I'm assuming, comes across a lot of people's minds. Which I don't think is very productive.
No, it's not. It's just regret, right? It's just like, let's just
move on.
Do with the now, you know?
Yeah.
You know, and in terms of like, giving advice to people, it's like, just make sure the role you choose is the one because it's going to be, you know, that's such a scary thing. You know, it's fine. You know, everyone's journey is all over the place.
I think, but you know, we have articulated this before. We do think that playing a like mid-top probably will teach you the most about the game.
During starting the game, I actually responded to another Skool Post. Someone saying, I want to get into the game. I'm playing jungle. I said, no, it's hard. It's
avoid
brutal.
support, avoid jungle. Mid-top.
You got to learn, you have to learn how, because the whole game is based on really minion waves, really. Yes. How to trade, how to fight. Because remember, with jungle, you barely fight. So you're not going to really know the damage limits. Like, you could argue, well, you're experiencing the damage with all different roles, but you know, you trading, you're fighting all the time, you're starting to feel damage limits. Like, you might play jungle and barely, you know, have 4 fights in a game versus, you know, you're fighting for 15 minutes as a laner. So I think that's why you have to start as a lane that does damage and hits people. That's why support's bad, because you need to learn how to do damage, you need to learn how to kill people, you need to fight a lot, and you need to know how minion waves work. Otherwise, jungle's just...
Yep, AD carry mid-top. I would say mid-top is usually the best. AD carry is still fine as well.
Yeah. And this is what happened actually with Gina. Support back to AD carry and then maybe back to support, it looks like. Next one here comes from Andy. I've thought about this before. I once heard Alois say that if you want to be a good jungler, you should first get to diamond playing top or mid and then start playing jungle. I think I wrote into the BBC asking their thoughts on it, and Nathan Curtis agreed. Not in the sense that junglers should do that, but it would be a lot easier going from diamond laner to diamond jungler than the other way around. I still think I'm happy with the decision to start League as a jungler, though. I'm still enjoying the game years later with no real desire to play lane. Hui says, I started the game main in Rise. I regret nothing. I miss old Rise every day. Bring back shields on combos, please. That's an interesting pick to start playing. I guess Rise was the picture, the poster boy of League. Remember the old graphic? Like Rise was, and Faker Rise. Yeah. I don't know what season started playing, but...
You know, I do think, just while quickly on this topic, I don't want to go on a tangent too much here, but I do think there is a toxic element to nostalgia in League. You know, I think that a lot of people get stuck up in the past with like how a champ used to be. Like, oh, back in the day, I used to love old X, old Lucian, old Nocturne, Mid, Rumble, whatever, Rise, Aurelia, Vlad, whatever the hell it is. And it's like, yeah, cool nostalgia feels good to think about, right? It's like kind of like mental masturbation in a way, right? But the reality is that they were changed for a reason. And those champions were fundamentally, the kits didn't make sense. And just because they were fun doesn't necessarily mean they were healthy. But I do think people like latch onto it in a really negative way. Like, oh, if only they kept it. And like they like compare what the game is now to what it used to be. But what the game used to be is, it was just not fun. It is in like, if you played that game now, you would have less fun is what I'm saying. Yes. It was fun at the time because that was the level of play of everyone at that time. If the game remained the same with the people's game understanding now, it would be broken. You would be miserable because the things would be broken. It would be out of control. Imagine people with how good they are at the game now playing old school Vlad or old school Rise or, you know, these champions. It would be the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen. People, imagine how ridiculously strong these champions were then, but we didn't even understand waves, resets, the map. You know?
Could minimize it, always guarantee a scale.
They would have been unbelievable with the skill set we have now. It always makes, I always think that, by the way. I always think like, holy moly, imagine Kassadin. Like, imagine when Kassadin had a silence on the Q and like how broken Kassadin was back in the, like, imagine if Kassadin was strong then, like, and like the way those kits were designed, how overloaded they were. Like, imagine if that champion was here, like now, like how much that would break the game. Or Vlad Sustain, how insane Vlad Sustain was. It's just silly.
Remember the Eve stealth was on top? You could be on top of them and you wouldn't get spotted.
Or TFR was literally global.
Oh, yeah.
Things like that.
Oh, God.
There's like this ridiculous things, like really ridiculous things. Pantheon ult was literally global. Stuff like that. It's just like, why? You know? People would be complaining about it.
Jake says, Jinx, if I knew she would get a TV show, and I'll definitely want to main her because I know Righty's going to treat her right. That's sort of like
that's smart.
That's
honestly.
going, you know, the thinking of like going, getting in the future, getting a lottery ticket.
Right. Oh, yeah. So what you mean, like Back to the Future.
Yeah, Back to the Future, yeah.
You know what's funny as well? I wonder if they will buff the champions for the next season of Arcane. The champs that all like, you know what I mean? Like
that's the theory.
The champs that are on
so what
Arcane.
Is it? Vi. I think I got a Vi in my program. What are the mid laners in?
Well, yeah, but I'm sure there'll be new champions, right?
Yeah. Eric says, if I could go back, I would play way more champions and try every role. In my league journey, I messed around on 80 and support with my friends, but that didn't last long. Then I went straight to mid lane for ranked. I started with Annie and then went to Victor, who I played as an OTP for nearly 2 years to learn the basics of mid lane. I think it would have served me better to try different roles and champ archetypes in the early days. I didn't play any assassins, bruisers, tanks. As a result, I find myself super curious about those other types of champs and roles that I missed, trying them now to figure out what I actually prefer to play. TLDR,
that's actually
try out more stuff.
That's first. Actually one of my regrets as a coach. I wish I found out this. I wish I discovered... I mean, it's not really regret. I just wish I knew of champion cycling earlier.
Yeah.
I really do. I mean, there's no way around it. I don't know how I possibly could have known that.
I mean, I was so stubborn. I think I had the worst journey technically. I was a jungle only, didn't play lane, didn't understand lane. Tank only player.
The champions you played as well.
Right? Yeah. The skills that I was learning, it was really brutal. It was so hard for me. That's why I was that, hyper efficient tank jungler. I was, getting 3 accounts, top 10 playing in season 4 playing. I think my pool was Skarner, Eve. The Eve that I played though was like tank. I went Sunfire, Hex Drinker or whatever. I was like 80 Eve back then.
Jesus Christ.
Udyr and like Nunu and stuff, remember? And Nasus jungle.
Even Rammus.
And Rammus. Yeah, Rammus. And when I came back after my break after a couple of years, that's why I struggled so much, because my journey was so distorted. That's why I was struggling in like Platinum.
Unbelievable.
And that was, you saw my journey getting back to Challenger. That was brutal couple of years.
I think
learn how to kill people.
I mean, brutal is an understatement, honestly. If people could know just what you did and how brutal if people would People would look at you differently, Nathan, honestly.
If they knew, yeah.
If they knew how long you were just grinding. I remember just looking at you playing. I'm like, you're going to lose your mind, dude.
But I never did.
You didn't lose your mind,
No, I
but you
never
were
did.
close.
I was close many times.
Holy moly.
Simuli says, I would have started on any other role than jungle and support, like mainly mid or top with relatively simple champs. I think the one thing I'm very okay with is the fact that I did try out different roles and champs for small periods of times, but had I been main in a lane role from the start, I'm sure it would have streamlined learning the game a lot for me. So it looks like a lot of common things about starting playing the lane and playing a lot of different roles. Different champions, sorry.
Yeah.
All right, our next one here is from Vladimir. Champion fatigue. How does it feel? Hello, guys. I'm a long-time listener of the BBC podcast and an ADC main. In previous seasons, since Season 3, I played a wide variety of champions on the bot lane, all of which were standard marksmen. Basically, I main Jinx, Kai'Sa, and Caitlyn, occasionally throwing in Xayah, Tristana, Vayne, Misfortune, and Ashe. So I had quite a large champ pool, and I think that really harms my journey and me getting good champ mastery. My 3 main picks are solid, but everything extra always felt a bit rusty and not good enough, which is reasonable. And thanks to Broken by Concept, I get why. Before listening to them, I thought all ADCs are pretty much the same, so it should be easy to keep a wider pool. But yeah, mental stack got overwhelmed too easily when I picked a new champion. Anyways, this split, I decided to OTP Kai'Sa. I don't have too much time to play League, so I played 134 games on her, with 115 being solo queue. I always loved playing Kai'Sa. I kind of feel her as my true champion, which I can OTP forever. Weirdly enough, I kind of started to feel the most optimal build path for me and the most optimal playstyle for me began to feel a bit boring and odd. I started pivoting here and there, either for suboptimal plays or suboptimal items, sometimes both. At the same time, when I play, let's say Caitlyn, 7 games is split, or Jinx, 9 games is split, I really feel good and having a blast. So I really think that I should switch from Kai'Sa to other champions for at least a while. At the same time, it feels weird and even unbelievable. Like, why do I feel this way? Champion is still cool and interesting, and I think I like playing her, but I kind of feel burnt out. I know that on the podcast it was mentioned many times that such a thing exists, but can you please share some personal stories to show that I'm not alone in this struggle? Thank you guys, appreciate it, love you all. Andy said, I think it's normal to feel that way. Curtis was saying on the Champion Pool podcast 2 episodes ago that to be a one trick is quite rare. I don't think you have to drop Kai'Sa completely, but if a game seems like a good Jinx or Caitlyn game, then pick them and cycle them into your pool. 3 champions is a solid champion pool size. Samuel says, in my experience, I have burnout when I do not feel like I am improving. I probably had 1,000+ games on Cassiopeia and I was still having fun, but the second I decided the problems I was having were related to the champ, I experienced heavy burnout. Whether I was right or not, it basically made her impossible to play. Burnout for me means stagnation, and it requires that I change my mindset on my approach. And sometimes that approach is picking up another champion. Keeping learning objectives and VOD reviews mixed in with my blocks helps me a lot when it gets bad.
So I think burnout is just different for everyone. I really do. I don't think there is like a cookie cutter kind of feeling, you know, because I think I get that question a lot. Like, what is it? Like, how do I know I'm burnt out? Like, how do I know that I should swap champions? How do I know that I'm ready to move on or whatever? And it's
take
like,
a break from the game.
Yeah, and I always struggle to answer the question, right? And I end up saying something very generic, like, you know, you got to just be honest with yourself or something like, you know, you go get it, you know. And I really think it just comes down to, okay, for me, you know, I like what he said there. For me, it's you know, that's how I like his response. Like, he had his own definition of what burnout felt like for him. For me, it almost feels like I've learnt them over time. Like, I've got my red flags. Like, one of my red flags is that I feel like the game has to go a certain way for me to win, to be successful.
I've fallen into that trap a million times.
Like if I have that mindset, like my early game or my early lane has to go like this, or these certain boxes have to be checked, then I know that I'm in some sort of fucked up thought loop that I need to get the hell out of. I know that I've lost that curiosity, that adaptability, and I know I'm in the shit at that stage.
You've curated some narrative. The narratives, you've built some narratives over time subconsciously.
Exactly. So that's one of them. I would say another one is that like I genuinely feel like when I'm loading into the game, the chances of me getting ahead or getting into a favorable position,
I feel like it's just hopeless.
It's hopeless.
Yes.
It feels really low percentage. It feels like I'm going into the game and I'm already at a disadvantage. It feels like my champ does no damage or something. Like I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but that's how it feels. It feels like I don't do as much damage as when other people play my champion. That's how I feel, if I'm just being honest. I feel like my champion is weaker than theirs all the time, and I have to play perfectly to win, and other people play my champion, they just do more damage. So whenever I have some sorts of weird lines of thought, that's when I know I got to investigate. I've either lost the plot with my reference points, I've lost the plot with what the champ's even about, or more often than not, I'm probably played too much of the champ and I'm burnt out, and I haven't refreshed my perspective.
And that's where champ pool cycling and stuff comes into play.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly
and taking a break and refreshing,
but have you
getting
noticed,
inspired.
Nathan, a lot of like the advice we give, whether it's relating to some sort of stage 4 stuff or process or intensity or, dealing with burnout, it all comes down to just awareness, some sort of reflection, some sort of just like thoughtfulness about what's going on, and I think that's one of the key, we're realizing over time in this podcast, one of the key themes, we've got many themes in curiosity and intensity and et cetera, but it really comes down to just being more in tune with yourself, having the tough conversation with yourself, like not just accepting that the way you feel is normal. Like, I know that sounds really basic, but like for me, especially when I was younger, like I would feel a way. I think especially, and like I would say this is especially common for guys. I think guys, and I'm not saying this doesn't apply to women as well, but especially for men, is like I think we're very like we try to like ignore how we feel. Like I think women are more in touch with their emotions, and they tend to be more self-aware.
Yeah.
And like they have higher social EQ and higher emotional intelligence than men. But men are just...
Keep powering through it.
We just keep powering through it. It's like, I just feel like shit. I feel like I want to blow my brains out right now playing this game. But you know what? That's just normal. I'm just going to keep chugging along.
Yeah, but it's so hard because there is an element of sometimes you need to suck it up. There is that element of it, which is why it gets confusing. It's like with me with Rek'Sai.
Yeah.
I had to say, like, I was sort of burnt out with Rek'Sai, but I need to get serious with my level of play. There's multiple doors. Like, let's go. And then it started actually becoming fun again.
Yeah. But I will say that, like, okay, like, let's go back to that metaphor, right? Let's say you're in that room and you can't find the door. Maybe what you're better off doing is sometimes walking backwards. Go back through the door that you came from. Be like, okay, well,
how did I do it here?
Yeah, refresh my
so
perspective,
good.
Which is kind of like the idea of refreshing perspective with a champion. It's like, rather than sitting in the same room, sitting in that corner, staring at all the walls over and over again, get the hell out, move around, do something different. Switch up your routine a little bit, get your brain thinking in a different way, then come back. Which is tying into when I move on from a champion or burnout, I'm not moving on. I'm just taking a little bit of a holiday. I'll be back, vacation, screw around with a different champ, maybe a different role, whatever, and then I'll revisit, and then boom, before you know it, I can break through that plateau point. So I think it's important to know. It's like just being more thoughtful about your approach, really. So again, I think you got to find out what burnout is for you. That's the key thing here, I think.
Nathan here says, my burnout happened with Jinx and Twitch, but I didn't stop having fun with the champions. Instead, I started playing worse and worse, many times autopiloting and making dumb decisions. Some years later, that happened to my Kai'Sa as well. I still enjoy playing all of them, but I sense that at some point I start autopiloting too much. I can only play optimally again if I rotate the pool.
Yep. I resonate with that one big time.
Matt here says, I know your experience. I OTP'd Zach for about 8-ish months. I reflected upon my experience with burnout in another topic in the BBC topic. If you're curious in general, I will say that burnout crept up on me. I didn't really appreciate how burnt out I had become until I made the switch.
That's actually so true.
I'm gonna like this
because
one,
it does creep up on you. It's not like you wake up one day and it's like, holy moly, my hands are falling off or something. It's like, no, it really does creep up on you. It's like a feeling that lurks and it just grows slowly. It's like you don't even realize. That's the scary thing. You don't even realize it's happening.
No.
That's the scary thing about it.
Because you don't know what the other side feels like.
Yeah, you forget. You
forget.
Because think about it. It's like molding you, shaping you. So it's like this. Like it starts off very subtle and grows in a very, very subtle way, and then you get to the point where that's just the norm. So you just think that is the way you're meant to feel all the time. You just queue up with this champ. That's just how everyone feels playing this champion. But no, you've created that little kind of biome yourself. That's your own little weird mental environment that you've created. That it's just really toxic, but you don't realize how toxic it actually is.
I'm trying to think of like an analogy. It's like this cloud that's building up on top of you and it starts raining and you're just permanently wet from the rain. But the radius isn't that big. You can just step out and just be dry, but you're stuck there.
I kind of see where you're coming from. I think a better analogy might be, you're in a relationship with someone and you don't realize how toxic the relation is until you get out of it. Yeah. So like you're around someone all the time and you're talking to someone all the time and then because you're talking with that person all the time and you're around that person all the time, you don't actually realize that, holy shit, yeah, our conversations are actually really quite toxic and actually not that productive and actually quite negative. But then you don't realize that your conversations are negative because every conversation is negative.
That's right.
And that's the norm. Yeah. So if your benchmark is that's the norm, then you won't really know otherwise until you put yourself out of that situation. So I think that for me, that's kind of the way I would describe it.
Eleanor had the advice of take some time to play a different champ for a streak, then get back to the main. It helps refresh your perspective and appreciate the champ you chose to go in on. The appreciate your champ, that's important. Douglas says, my best advice for your situation, remain a Kaiser main, but have spots where you pick Jinx. Caitlyn, being an ADC main, you probably often pick early in draft, but you can usually ask what champs your support plays. If they play tank, pick Kaiser. If they play enchanter, pick Jinx. If they play mage, pick Caitlyn. Your 3 ADC pool actually works fantastic for the 3 primary support classes. If you really want to mix things up because you just aren't feeling excited, doing your normal ranked grind in that fashion, then play on a second account and practice whatever you feel like. Great advice from our community. Yeah. Again, I always say our community cares.
Really good advice.
We got the smartest League of Legends community. All right, if you want to join the smartest League of Legends community, link in the description below, skool.com. We will teach you League. Mailbag time, Curtis. Away we go. Welcome back for Nathan's Mailbag. Jingle song. Alrighty then. Our first question here comes from Grady. The title of this email is Problems Understanding Facilitators. Hello, Nathan and Curtis. I've been a fan for a little over a year and a half now. Oh, over half a year now, 6 months. And your content has improved my gameplay significantly. I've been a jungler since Season 2, but could never reach Diamond, despite getting to promos for it in Season 7 as a Pantheon top. I've finally reached my goal of Diamond 4 thanks to the days of content you've provided to aid me in the ways I think about the game and assessing win conditions, but I've noticed a problem. I've had with certain types of champions that are dedicated to facilitating and playing towards win conditions, namely my Sejuani, but the problem extends to when I play other tanks in the jungle. When I play Bel'Veth or Sylas jungle, I'm keeping what players on my team I can use to win the game at the front of my thoughts and putting myself around them whenever possible. But I have the agency to go for a pick on my own if one presents itself to me. While with facilitators, I feel like my only option is to attach myself like a Yuumi to a win condition and hope they can win me the game. In addition to that, it feels like I've made an end of review mistake if I take a large shutdown instead of someone like an Aatrox or a Katarina, because the gold is vastly more useful on them than me. I love the gameplay of facilitators, and I know it's possible to reach a high rank with them, but I feel there's something fundamental to them I'm just not understanding, because it feels like I can facilitate just as well on more damage-oriented champions than ones more focused on CC and tankiness. Would love to hear your thoughts. Here's my OPGG. He's currently, he finished, Diamond 1. Diamond, it doesn't tell me. Diamond last season. Diamond something.
Okay. Well, you're the jungle coach. What's your thoughts here?
Facilitator. So you got to get really specific with the jungle role here, more so.
Say Sejuani.
Sejuani. Sejuani does playing tank junglers does suck in some games, just flat out. That is just the truth. If you're playing Sejuani with a Ornn top or like a Malphite top or something, and you've got a Syndra mid and like a Zyra bot lane, you don't have anyone really to utilize your passive. You don't really have that many options, and it's just not going to feel good. That's Sejuani specific. I think Sejuani is more of like just that one, really. If I think about other facilitators in the jungle,
What are some other tank junglers?
I mean,
Rammus?
Skarner, Rammus, but Rammus has a clear identity. You know, again, same thing with Rammus. I guess Rammus fits that category as well. If you're playing in a game with no champions that are going to auto attack themselves to death, it's going to be hard, but it's still possible. Your mindset with this is you got to still be as strong as possible. You've got to hit your camps and still take high percentage plays. The thing about tanks is they're very good at dive in. So there's very few moments in the game that you actually will have moments where you can explode open the game. So yeah, I mean, I think that his pain is very reasonable. I don't recommend people to play champs like Sejuani, you know, like every game or play it a lot, because you will lose your mind on these champs as a jungler because you're weak and if you don't really have many good win conditions, you know, you can't run around killing people. That's why in general, if you actually look at the top solo queue players and in general high solo queue win rate champs, they're generally champs that can kill people, and you can still technically be a facilitator and you can do damage. So I think that that's sort of the superior way that jungle's been played for years. You know, like champs like, you know, Graves, and you can always see in high rank, and he plays Belveth, which I think is great. I think you actually are just going to have a harder time. Again, that's a general sort of statement. If you were going to be playing these champs and trying to get high rank with them, then you still need to be strong, and it's going to be brutal with making mistakes.
Yeah, I think what you said there is really important, specifically the part about understanding when a game is hard for your champion. You know, when you're playing, I mean, I see it in mid lane with facilitated mid laners. It's the same idea. And I'll say this for all champs. You know, this is a skill within itself to build, is understanding what makes a good or bad game for your champion. Now, that's not because that doesn't mean you won't play it. That doesn't mean that you're going to automatically lose the game. But what it does, it manages your expectations. If you're playing Sejuani in a game where Nathan described, where you've got no one that's going to utilize your passive, you've got very little kill threat on a lot of members. Well, not to say you can't win the game, but the game's going to be hard. It's objectively a difficult game, which means that, you know, there is very, very little room for error. And the game might actually genuinely be out of your control. So the reality is that you need to manage your expectations accordingly, right? That's going to help with your relationship with the game long run. But I will say, just from a laner's perspective, I just think tank junglers in general just they're just straight up not as effective as a lot of the other champions in the game.
Yeah, I think it's just
straight up. That's just the reality.
Yeah.
Right? Doesn't mean you can't climb with them, but your journey is going to be harder.
There's certain games where the facilitator junglers actually just auto win.
Yes.
You have strong laners. You know, let's say I'm playing Sejuani with a Kiana mid and I have like AD, and then, you know, maybe a mage support. Like I can be the front line. It's just like those games are going to be
you can have
really
games
easy.
where like you're playing Rammus and you just get an auto win.
Yeah.
You know,
that's right. It's the perfect Rammus
stars
game.
align.
Yeah.
But so I think that to answer this question, manage your expectations, understand what makes a good or bad game for your champion. You probably don't want to be relying on only tanks in your pool. I think I'm assuming, Nathan, it's good you can have a tank in your pool, but you don't want to have only tanks.
No,
I'm assuming.
absolutely not.
Right. And so it's more about maybe, you know, expanding your champ pool if that was the case for you, and then go from there.
But there is tanks that are like they can carry, like Zac.
Yeah, Zac's different.
Zac's
in my
different.
opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
It's very different to Sejuani because Zac does damage, way more damage, and then also your damage is not tied to CC, hard CC, like Sejuani is, right? Because Sejuani kind of relies on getting the stun off, right? The passive. But Zac, you're always going to have impact with your E, regardless. Like you're not cleansing the Zac E, you know? So I think that Zac's just a bit different. Very different.
Yeah, I'm looking at the pool. So he plays Belveth, Sejuani, Sylas, Zac, Hecarim, Evelyn, Warwick. Like all those junglers like do damage and they can carry. Sejuani's just this unique pick.
Very unique pick.
It's like a unique facilitator in itself. You have like facilitator junglers. Like I view Jarvan as like a facilitator jungler. But you can kill shit with Jarvan.
Yep.
You know, a lot of my pools I have been the facilitator jungler, but my mindset is I still scale with these champions. I still do damage and kill shit. But yeah, Sejuani's in her own class, I feel like. Is there like that for mid as well, Curtis?
Yeah, I was thinking this. I was trying to think about that. I will say one thing. There's been a bit of controversy in my platform recently regarding Galio. And so basically, this is, I'd like to get your take on this. from someone who versus Galio. When you verse a Galio, what's more scary? What do you dislike? What feels more harder to beat? Is it dealing with a very, like the full, like the Lichbane, full damage, like they still go Aftershock, but let's just say more damage oriented. So like Lichbane into Shadow Flame, or like the more tank, they build tank, like Hollow Radiance into like Roofmaker. I don't know if you've seen that build, but like the tank Galios. Which one feels more annoying to verse from your perspective?
It's a great question.
I don't know if you verse tank Galio, but
I very rarely play versus Galios in general. What I can tell you is that I die randomly to Galios because I don't expect their damage when they do the full damage, because I always expect that they're a bit tankier. What's more annoying? Yeah, I'd have to say the damage one, the damage version.
Damage one. I mean, for me, it feels like you have so much more options.
Yes.
So basically, the controversy is like I recommend a damage-oriented build. Lichbane, Shadow Flame, just damage.
Yeah.
Now, you're still getting Zhonya's in there, and you might get tank items later on, but like, the champ feels so much better when you have options to kill shit. When I'm going tank, yes, you're still doing damage. I get it, but but it's like, my options are way more limited, and the intuition I get is that
it's harder. I think
it's harder,
way harder to play.
But I think people enjoy that style because it's more forgiving. It's like I can get sloppy with my engages. I don't need,
can't think
you know
of
what I
the
mean?
game that way.
And I think that's the way people view it.
That's
though.
right. That's correct.
That's the way they're viewing it.
I know that's how
they
do
don't
it.
actually. They don't actually think that. Oh, I'm playing Lichbane well, and I'm playing this well, and this tank build's better. It's like I'm playing Lichbane pretty poorly.
And I'm gonna compensate.
I can be rough around the edges with this other champion and then make it work better for me. So yeah, you might be getting more results with it, but that's not because the build's better. It's because you're actually playing the other build suboptimally. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You can go down struggle town with that mindset thinking. I've literally had that mindset, and I was the tank jungle. I was the tank player, and I had to think about. I need to be more aggressive. I need to kill shit.
You need to kill shit. If you know how to utilize threat is one of the most important things in League.
Yeah.
Threat is everything actually in League, because threat creates space. It gives you prio, it gives you pressure, it gives you tempo, because you get prio, you get the reset first. Like having threat in general, it makes everything easier in the game of League of Legends.
Throughout the entire duration of the game, but tanks do have like critical points against certain comps where it's auto win.
True.
But that's not going to be every game.
Yeah, there are, and the conclusion that I came to,
because people will be like, think about Elise. Let's say they think about Elise.
Yeah, right.
Elise, you'd think is really threatening, but if you're playing Elise against a Sejuani and she gets to a point where she's tanking, you can't one shot. Then suddenly Sejuani has the threat and Elise is useless.
Tanks are very, I would say, you're right. Tanks are very, in general, like it's a bit of a.
That's why Prox, when we have Frox on. Tank items are hard to balance.
Tank items are hard to understand.
Yeah.
Because damage is easier, right? It's more intuitive. Tank's interesting. Yeah. I know what you mean, though. But yeah, I think, when you talk about a game where it's like, I build this and then we win, tank has that effect.
Correct.
Way more than damage. It's not like, a damage, I build a damage item, like, yes, we auto win the game. No. There is always that X factor when you build damage whereby you can throw a game. But with tank, if you're ahead and you have those games that are really good when you're tanky,
just run at them brute force.
You can literally just slam your face on the keyboard and you can win. Which is pretty crazy to think about. But that kind of does happen because the kit can be overwhelming. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, tanks is a slippery slope, especially for a jungler, because tanks top lane, you get resources. Tanks is a jungler because you actually clear slow, and if you get behind you, because you're not building damage, you can't get back. It's brutal. Like playing a tank from behind with no options is probably the worst league experience you could have. I genuinely think.
No, I disagree.
You think?
I mean, look, actually, I can't comment because I've not been in that situation. But I'm going to just say one thing.
Yeah.
Getting behind as a top laner into a snowbally champion,
that could be up there as well.
That's up there, man.
That's true.
Like I had a game with Darius where I died early into a Riven or something, and the Riven, and then as walking back to lane, the jungler ganked me, so I lost like 3 waves. So I was down, like I'm just out. I'm like down and out, right? Okay. And then I literally can't play the game. I will die every time I walk up. The wave comes out, I die. I have no sums. What do? I get zoned. I can't roam.
And you're
I'm a
easy to get
Darius.
dove as well.
It's just like there is literally zero counter. Like I feel like top lane is that role where there is zero counterplay. Whereas a jungle, like you can kind of always have impact in some way, shape, or form. Like, what am I going to do as a Darius where the wave's frozen? I'm going to run mid, run at people as a Darius with no sums. I'm useless with a cloth armor in my inventory. What am I going to do? Whereas, like, jungle, say you're behind on a Sejuani, it's like, okay, at absolute worst, I can fling out an arm.
QR, yeah.
You know? Like, it's no doing that as a Darius. So, like, I personally think that top has more of those doom situations. No counterplay.
Okay, so that might be playing Sejuani in a really bad game.
Oh yeah, that will be up there.
It's up there.
It's up there.
It's not the worst.
It's very unpleasant to say the least.
All right, next one here. It comes from Mr.L. The title of this email is A Journey of a Veteran Player. Hello, Nathan and Curtis. I'm a player who has played since Season 5 and am here to share my ranked experiences. To be honest, I am conflicted about writing this since I'm not taking this game seriously right now. Still listen to your podcast every now and then because why not? But I think my journey should propose an interesting case to you, so I ended up writing anyway. I started really trying to improve at Season 10 when I really wanted the season skin reward. I reached gold in Season 13 and went all the way to Emerald 1 in Split 2. I believe most of my improvement comes from reviewing my games. I record almost all of them and asking for advice from better players. And then Season 14 dropped, and after one night, I suddenly struggled in gold. Yes, after the season update, I cannot get out of gold. He's talking about when Season 14 came along. Even after 50-ish games. Although I eventually struggled my way back to plat, I couldn't help but question that this skill I obtained was a fake one. The rank 1 or anyone can be pure luck. Hence, I quitted playing to improve. I still play solo queue, but I stopped reviewing every game. What do you think about my case?
It's so hard. It can be so many reasons, Nathan. Like, it's one of those...
It could be as simple as new season, I need to do crazy things, everything's happening, and then you just completely... You think you're playing a different game, but you're still playing the same league. It could be as simple as that.
So the way I view it, we're like...
Because everyone lost their minds at the beginning of Season 14.
Yeah, spot on.
Have you actually noticed? I feel like I'm back to playing... I actually did feel something weird happening at the beginning of Season 14. But now League's just League again. Like the map is like I actually can't remember the old map.
Right.
Have you noticed that?
In the sense
like
that...
I can't think of what it would be like to play League last season now.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. I never thought of that.
I was thinking about the other day. Like I had this feeling.
What does the old League feel like? You mean without grubs?
I had this feeling. And I was trying to just, like at the beginning of Season 14, where I actually did sort of feel like I was playing a little bit of a different game because of the new map. But now I feel like I'm playing League of Legends that I know again. It's hard to describe. You haven't felt that?
Not really.
Okay.
But I will say, like, just tying back into the question, you know, at the end of the day, it can be so many things. Like you said, the most obvious one is that the game's different. The Grubs introduction was massive in terms of game pace. Like, think about, I don't know what role he plays, but dude, think about it. Imagine you played as a mid laner. A lot of people, that shifted the entire the pace of the game. Supports were roaming to Grubs,
but the fundamentals are the fundamentals, Curtis.
No, but all it takes is one or two things to change,
to shift
for you to really like if you were stuck in my intuition from this email, Nathan, is that he came into Season 14 with a really blasé mentality. Like he said, he's like, I kind of like gave up on the journey. Seems like to me he took a break. He had a break over the Christmas or whatever, right? He come back, came in with a very blasé, oh yeah, whatever, I should be able to play and get back. The map's changed. Supports are roaming over all the time to Grubs. You know, that's changed the pace of the game. The game pace did pick up a lot. There was a lot of damage. And he was maybe stuck in his ways. And rather than trying to problem solve it was like, oh, I'm just going to keep playing how I was playing in a very, like, again, casual mindset. Kept losing games. And rather than reviewing and trying to figure out what was going on, kept trying to play the same way that he was. And it wasn't climbing. That's simple. I mean, I genuinely think it could just be really, really lack of an adaptation to the new split.
And he said 50 games. Like that he would have pissed away 25 games easy. It's actually a pretty small sample size. I could see it happening. I think it's really realistic. Yeah.
Small sample size, new game, new items, a lot changed.
And different attitude.
Yeah. Maybe he came off a break so that you could have easily pissed away 20 games just regaining just your muscle memory, right? So let's say 20 games. Let's say it takes 20 games to get back. That's 30 games. That's not really that much. And you're already back to plat. I mean, that kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah.
But I think what I'm here to say is that I think there are so many other things at play we just don't know. I don't know if you took a break. I don't know if you had a mental shift. I don't know if you shift your champ pool. I don't know what role you played. I think certain roles got impacted more than others. The list goes on. There are so many things that could be contributing to that. But you know what? I think what I want to take away from this one, Nathan, is that a lot of the time, like I get questions relating to why am I at this rank, and it's just like I could sit here and write you a thesis as to why that is the case, but it's just like it's all just speculation, and it doesn't matter a lot of the time. Like I really think we should put that focus on like why am I here to okay, this is where I'm at. Like rather than thinking in the past, think about the future. It's like okay, well, this is where I'm at. Where do I need to go from here? What skills do I need to develop? Like what mistake did I make in my last game? What mistakes did I make in my very last game? Did I die to a gank?
Where was my end of review?
Where was my end of review moment? Exactly. Like what am I actually doing? Bring it back to the gameplay. Like I think it's very sexy to sometimes try and, you know,
this is a human instinct, a natural instinct. We want to make sense of things, and we'll create a narrative or a story of why we're in this position in life.
Look, it's fun, and look, I'm not saying there is zero learning, but I just don't think it's the best time investment.
Whenever you start losing the plot, bring it back to gameplay,
Yes.
bring it back to process.
Yes.
That never fails.
Never
ever.
fails.
It's
And then we can
always
figure it
always
out
done
later.
well for me. Yes.
You will figure out later
Yeah.
in hindsight.
You'll
Like
be like,
I've
"Oh, it
always
makes so
felt
much
like
sense."
when you're in the shit, it's so hard to know what's going on. Everything kind of makes sense later on. You're like you end up kind of fixing your process and getting back into it and climbing. And you're like, oh yeah, that actually kind of does make sense. I was actually just like, you know, I didn't realize I was alt tabbing in my games or some shit. You know, you don't realize what you're doing in the moment. You know, everything will clear up eventually.
All right, next question here comes from Anthony. The title of this email is Long-Time Listener with a Burning Question. Hello, Curtis, Nathan, and the BBC production team. That's not very big.
Yeah, we have a bunch of staff back here. I mean, yeah, shout out cameraman Johnny. We got lighting crew over here. We got another lighting crew over here. They're working overtime. Production, as you can see from our editing, we have some great editors as well. We got a director in the back. We got Bobby in the back there as well. Jim Bob in the sidelines. Massive team. Shout out. Thanks for keeping us running over here.
We have a very low budget podcast here, guys, okay? But I like the thought. It's a thought that counts, Anthony. Thank you. My name is Anthony. I have a passion for League that goes all the way back to 2013 when I first got hooked by a Blitzcrank. This has been my all-time favorite game since then, and I've spent my entire League journey on only one account. That's cool. Let's have a look at the account. That's so cool when I see... Like, look at all that curves from season 4, 5, 6, play,
That's
ranked
what I
7,
wanna
8,
see.
9, 10. And it's slowly gone up. Look at that. Look at that journey.
That's what I want to say.
Silver, gold, platinum, down to gold, platinum, emerald. How cool is that?
Grinder. Love it.
I love that. I'm a husband and father with a full-time job. However, I found ways to balance my life and self-improvement with League as my main hobby competitive outlet. Whenever I'm off the riff, though, I've always enjoyed diving deep into the educational content the community has put out over the years. Naturally, this led me to your podcast, and I've listened to every episode on release since I discovered you guys in September 2020.
Wow.
I mention this because I told myself that I need to contribute in some way to the BBC community, especially since you guys are approaching 200 episodes. I've invested so much time as a passive listener. It's time I dropped a letter into the legendary Mailbag. This is the one. This better be a good question, Anthony. I was encouraged to write in after my friend Nathan submitted his success story in episode 175. We used to queue up together all the time before he ended up on night shifts. I'm proud to see how far he's come as a player in his relationship to the game. I could never bring myself to write in though, as I felt I wasn't experiencing any issues with my climb that you guys haven't already addressed in some way. It's like the BBC is telepathic. Every time I had an idea for an email, you drop an episode with the title that nearly matches my subject heading. Or Nathan pulls a letter out of his mailbag from someone that's clearly plagiarized the draft sitting in my outbox. It's uncanny. Jokes aside, this is why I love the Broken by Concept podcast. This community always has just what I need, except for one thing, my burning question. Maybe I could look it up online, but I want to hear it from you guys. Here it is. What's the story behind the Broken by Concept intro music? So he's talking about the Spotify intro. We don't do the intro music on YouTube. I've always been curious about the origins of the BBC intro. 4 men on a search, each man different, live in his own way, searching, discovering numero uno. I kind of understand the parallels with the solo queue rank journey here, but who exactly are the 4 men? The founding fathers of BBC, searching for what? A game? Are queue timers in OS that long? What is significance to you guys? Is numero uno supposed to be rank 1? Where did it come from? It ends abruptly like it's been clipped from a movie or cultural reference. I've listened to this message nearly 200 times. I need to know what it's all about. A sincere thanks for reading my lengthy email. I know it was a simple question, but I felt it was important for me to introduce myself. I feel like I've gotten to know you two so well over the course of the podcast. I didn't just want to be an anonymous listener anymore. I'll be sure to write in again sometime, maybe with a success story. We all appreciate the work and passion you guys put into the game. Keep chipping away. Anthony.
Well, let's tell the full story. I'll tell the full story.
The full story, Curtis.
Okay. So
The
law. This is okay for people who want to get better at the game. You're not interested in the law. Check out now. We'll see you for the next episode. For the people who are actually the hardcore listeners who actually want to know about the law, this is the real story. Nathan and I we lived together in the gaming houses back in the day, when Direwolves, 2017, 2018, 2019, and even before that, Nathan and I had, been friends for quite a while. And then, at this time, especially 2017, like 2018, 2019, these 3 years were very transformative for Nathan and I. And we kind of, because think about that age, we were 21. That was like 21
to 24.
24, like a very formative age. And we were like learning a lot, growing a lot, like listening, like learning, reading and watching things. And there was at that time, that would have been in 2019.
Yes.
There was a movie that came out called Once Upon a Time in Hollywood by Quentin Tarantino. And at that time, Nathan and I we knew that we were like kind of moving on to another chapter.
We're leaving esports.
We were leaving esports. We knew that Direwolves wasn't where we wanted to be. We wanted to get out of that industry and we wanted to move into something new. We didn't know what that would be, but we knew where we were at that time wasn't it. And that movie, for those of you who have seen it.
Well, also as well, during that time, especially you started to take interest in movie culture
Film.
and movies, and
because Nathan was a massive movie buff since I knew you, right? Nathan was always been into film, like massively. Like whenever I first knew Nathan was just always into film, and he's the one who actually got me into film. And I never took film seriously before Nathan, and so Nathan would like show me movies all the time, and like he made me view film in like an actual critical way. Like I just watched it for what it was. I never thought of the deeper meanings. Or Nathan was really
know about the directors or the story behind movies, getting into the details of movies.
Nathan would legit get into the details of the movies, and so I got really into film because of Nathan. And Nathan went through a time he was showing me movies all the time, and I was just really excited. And Nathan had talked up for a long time. He's like, Quentin Tarantino, this amazing director, and you'd seen his films before in the past at the cinemas. You're like, Curtis, this is going to be a big film of his. Like, we're going to see it at the cinemas together. This is going to be like an historic moment, right? And so I was like really excited. We watched this film, and the film was amazing. But specifically, the film was about a guy, an actor, a big shot actor in Hollywood in the 70s, and his stunt double, right? His stunt double, and they were like really close. These two guys were really close. They were best friends, and they kind of relied on each other in a way, and they had this really like tight bond. And the film basically followed this plot of this actor kind of moving into the next part of his life. He was an actor that now the kind of the hippie culture had taken over, and he was like a West, he was doing Westerns and stuff, and that kind of faded out into a new, new period of film. And he felt like he was losing his identity and the main character. And he felt as though he was, making a transition in his life. And this film really spoke to Nathan and I, whereby it kind of mimicked the situation we were in.
The specific timing.
The timing was
uncanny.
perfect. It was really, really uncanny. And Nathan and I really just clicked with that film and those characters, which were Rick Dalton and Cliff Booth. So much so, if you really want to know the lore, the posters in my room, if you look at my videos, have two posters from that film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, of Rick Dalton. And so that's actually the mega lore right there. And so essentially Nathan and I just fell in love with this film, and me and Nathan just really bonded over this film. I think it was a really important time for us. It was a really important film for us.
We saw it twice.
Yeah, we literally went to the cinemas twice and saw it, and we just loved it. And we really resonated with the characters, and just at that time of our life, it was just a really important movie, I think, for us. We just clicked with it, gelled with it. And then we were obsessed with the music in it. And so anyway, long story short, there's a lot of ads in it, like ads as in that were part of that time. So the one of the characters would be in the car, and all these random ads would play, but there'd be ads from the 60s or 70s.
Yeah.
And we were like, this is so cool. What the hell? This is what ads sounded like back then in the 70s. And we were just fascinated with because Quentin Tarantino as a director, he's so detail oriented, and these were real ads of products that were sold at the time in the 70s. And we found, and when one of them was this cologne, numero uno is the name of a cologne that was being advertised on the radio in the film. And then we thought this was so cool, and it kind of had two men or whatever it is on the journey, and we just this might be a really cool intro.
I remember when we were talking about the intro to the podcast, we said we'll just throw in something random or reference. Well, again, it's not random because that movie meant a lot to us, and we tried to see something that fit, and just the men on a search. And numero uno, I guess rank one, but we're searching, we're trying to find the details.
Yeah.
It actually just sort of fit. And
it just kind of fit.
Let's just go with this.
Let's go with it. It gives us an identity. And I think, again, it has some sort of, it's a really important reference for Nathan and I. And a reminder of, I guess, a time of our life where we were very... in
discovery phase.
Discovery phase, and really transforming and changing and viewing things differently. That was kind of the beginning, I guess, if you will, of Nathan and I's transition into the new phase of our lives. So, that's the real story. That's the lore.
And we sort of, as a ritual, rewatch Once Upon a Time in Hollywood together, once a year at least.
Once a year, probably.
Yeah, it's like a ritual.
Yeah, and I think it is my number one movie. Not because it's the most amazing film, but I think it's a combination of both. It is an objectively amazing film, but it's just a very meaningful film for us. It has so many things were happening at that time of our life. It brings back a lot of memories. So, that's the story, I guess, and that's why it's there.
There is meaning.
There is meaning there.
All right, well, that's interesting. You know what I actually want to do? I'll link in the YouTube description if I remember. I'll make a note straight after this podcast. I'll have the actual full one for you, and you'll realize how ridiculous.
You mean
it is.
the
full ad?
Or something.
Yeah, the full ad. You know what actually says after, because it is cut off just as it says.
That's right.
It starts advertising
because the car's actually advertising it. Yeah, it's really funny.
Yeah, it's good.
But the ads are really funny. If you actually watch the film, listen to the ads. They're hilarious.
I want to buy the product.
I remember them. There's the tanning butter,
the tanning lotion.
They're so silly. You should listen to them. They're really, really funny. That's it.
I guess the key theme of it is our attention to detail. That's sort of a big one, why we chose it and why it's sort of meaningful.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, well, that wraps up our podcast. Hopefully that was educational from a League of Legends perspective, but also Broken by Concept podcast lore perspective. That's a bit funny that we're ending 199 with that. Moving to 200 next week.
Yeah.
What a good one.
Yep.
Good work, guys. Keep on improving. 3 Blocks reviews. We'll see you guys for episode 200.